Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Lettuce Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Was Adopted by Aizawa and Hisashi. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. When trapped in a confined, dark space, Aizawa Shouta has found that more often than not his senses heighten tenfold. He can't see, but every drop of water that hits the top of the closet almost echoes in his ears. The scurry of the rats, as they ran over his body, petrified him as he waited for the inevitable bite of their teeth. He hated the closet he was confined to for hours every night, but he didn't try to fight it. It was worse when he tried to fight it, his mama's claws sinking deep into the flesh of his childish arms, as she screamed at him. He'd learned a long time ago that to cry or to make noise was a death sentence the next morning. But it wasn't the rats or the constant dripping water that really bothered him. It was the noises he heard past them. For hours every night he'd hear his mama's screams, the grunting and slapping of skin continuing all night. And when the sounds finally stopped, the door would open, and there his mama would stand with a frown and bruised thighs. Sometimes she was mean about getting him in the closet, but the closet was there to protect him from whoever was making his mama scream. Shouta knew that, but he was tired of being protected, which is why tonight would be different. It had only been about an hour since he was locked up and the noises hadn't started yet. He'd spent hours at the school library learning how to pick locks, and he'd brought a bobby pin with him, taken from his mama's few prized possessions. He'd save his mama this time, run out of the house and find a hero to save them. A hero like All Might or Sunlight. Sunlight was his favorite hero, and a local hero at that. With the ability to produce sunlight from his body, he blinded villains and apprehended them easily. And he was always smiling and laughing. Shouta adored him. He would definitely save him and his mama, and then she'd stop complaining about how she was getting questions about him and taking the attention off of her. Shouta shifts quietly, sitting up and settling onto his knees, searching the ground for the bobby pin he'd dropped. It took a few minutes of blindly searching before he felt the cool metal, but when he finally grabs it, he can't help but hiss in pleasure. He reaches for the door, feeling for the door knob quietly. If he makes noise, his mama will hit him tomorrow. It takes a while to find the hole in the doorknob and insert the bobby pin. It takes even longer to hear the click that the book was talking about. When he does hear it, Shouta pauses with bated breath and grabs the doorknob with shaky hands. When he tries to turn it, for the first time ever it turns, clicking quietly and opening into the dimmed room. The noises have started, heavy panting and groans echoing through the paper-thin walls. He steps out, bare feet padding quietly against the carpeted floor, making his way into the hallway and pausing in front of the lit living room. His mama lies on the floor facing him. There's white powder under her nose, and her face is contorted. It scares the 9-year-old as he backs away quickly. He needs to find a hero to help his mama. He can't see the man who's hurting his mama, but he's big, arms bulging in a bright red long-sleeved shirt. He can't see what he's doing to his mama, but he's lurching strangely over her, both of them shuddering to those movements. Shouta backs away even more when his mama screams extra loud. This is where he messes up, tripping over a pair of large boots set in the entranceway of the living room. He falls into the wall, causing a loud thump to be heard. The noises in the living room stop suddenly. Is someone here, Beach? A husky voice emits from the living room, and then the sharp sound of flesh hitting flesh. I thought we had a deal. You don't allow anyone over at night, and I do what I please to this filthy body in return for money and drags. Heavy footsteps near the door, and Shouta scrambles back with a terrified whimper. The man enters the hall, tall enough he almost hits the top of the roof. It's dim in the hall and the man's features are covered in shadows in the seconds before he bends down and grabs Shouta. Those seconds seem to drag by, Shouta paralyzed with fear. When time finally starts again, it does so abruptly, the man leaning down to grab Shouta by the hair and drag him into the living room. His mother lies there, a handprint burned into her face. She's breathing heavily, and without the man hovering over her, he can see how her lower half is uncovered. Shouta blushes at seeing her private parts, trying to cover his eyes from the sight. Shouta, you little brat. I thought I locked you in the closet for the night. His mama hisses half-heartedly, glaring at him from her position on the floor. Shouta himself is held in the air, squirming away from the man holding him by his shirt. You have a child and you hid him from me? The mystery man hums quietly. Shouta whines when he's unceremoniously dumped onto the ground. Well, at least you didn't break your side of the deal. I'd hate to kill you. Besides, this is actually a slide of good luck. The man crouches down, and Shouta freezes once again. Not because he's scared this time, but because the man's features finally come into focus in the dim light. He knows that face. It's one that is usually smiling at Shouta from the front of a hero magazine. His brain buzzes with questions, eyes filled with tears. As sunlight? What are you doing here? Did you save Mama? He hiccups, trying to avoid the blatant truth. Said hero laughs mockingly, grabbing Shouda's cheeks, and squishing the little baby fat the too thin boy has. Save from what, sweetie? I help your mama, isn't that right, Baishanpu? Shouta starts to cry silently as his face is forcibly moved so the man can study his features. I don't understand. He wails, shuddering and prying at the strong fingers gripping his jaw. It hurts. I let him F me, brat. And I lock you away so you don't get in my way or whine about peeing yourself, but here you are anyways. His mama spits venomously. Sunlight smiles sickeningly at him. It's okay. See, there's something I didn't tell your mommy. I'll stick my D in anything that moves, and I'm willing to go to any lengths to do what I want to said thing, but there's one thing that I love sticking it in more than anything else. Can you guess? Shouta begins to dry heave. He's not sure what some of those words mean, but his hero is hurting him, and he'd been hurting his mama. He's confused and thinks he might throw up. The hand clench around his jaw travels to his neck and squeezes. Shouta is left struggling for air quickly, fingers yanking uselessly against his captor. Shouts can feel his bladder release in his pants, quickly leaving them soaked and sticking to his legs uncomfortably as the warm liquid turns cold. His eyesight is failing, eyes flaring red as his quirk tries to stop the man uselessly. It's not going to work. The man isn't using his quirk, simply his strength, but it's a last-ditch attempt to stay alive. Right before he passes out, his throat is released, and Shouta dry heaves, drinking in the sweet air. He's so focused on moving from the brink of death, he doesn't feel the fingers playing with his two small shorts. They were from when he was 5, and even though he hasn't grown much, it was enough to cause them to be tight. He comes back to reality, still heaving for air, when the button of his shorts is unclasped. Oh, come on. You got me so close to coming. Will you stop playing with him and finish F&G me? His mama hisses, blowing a ring of smoke out from her mouth. Shouta blinks sluggishly. When did she grab a cigarette? Mama. He sobs quietly. Help. She gives him a scathing glare that sends chills down his spine. God, all you ever do is complain. I mean, you just ruined my night and now you want to complain about it? Little beach. She spits on the sobbing 9-year-old's face and stomps out. Shouta sobs as his pants are pulled down. He looks at Sunlight one last time, with a pleading look. You never did guess, sweetheart, but that's okay, I'll tell you. I like FING kids far more than the tightest woman's pages. I hope you don't mind filling in for your mama for the next few years. She has quite a bit of debt to pay back to me, but you'll do much better than her. Shouta isn't sure what FING is, but he doesn't want to find out. The next morning, Shouta is curled up on the floor, eyes open and vacant. His hair is plastered to his face with things he doesn't want to think about, and his lower half is burning with pain. The thought of moving brings bile to his throat. His mama sits on the couch above him, humming softly, her legs placed on top of Shota's back. You know, you might have stolen a good evening from me last night, but the payout was glorious. Seems you were such a good lay. Sunlight was feeling generous. At least you were useful last night. And now I bet he's really your favorite hero. Or at least I hope he is. You'll be seeing a lot more of him if the payout looks like that. His mama chortles above him. Shouta sobs silently. Eventually his mama tires of teasing him and wanders off, leaving the boy to clean up the puddle of vomit and bodily fluids he sits in. It takes hours before the numb boy manages to sit up and make his way outside. They don't have a shower, so he turns the garden hose on and curls up under it, letting the freezing cold water numb the rest of him. If anyone had walked by at that moment, perhaps they would have been worried, seeing a small child with eyes that screamed of horrors only found at night sitting underneath a freezing cold spray of water, but nobody did. And so Shouta is left to pick up his shattered pieces by himself. And when the traumatized boy finally sits down at the kitchen table, a slice of bread in front of him in hopes of quieting his growling stomach, his thin veneer of okayness is quickly broken by the small radio playing in the radio. And the hero Sunlight does it again. He'll be climbing the charts sooner than he thinks if he keeps up like this. Our beloved hero once again stopped a tragedy from happening when he managed to save 27 people from a house fire that had broken out in a local neighborhood. Shouta clicks the radio off quietly. The bread he'd managed to eat churns in his gut, threatening to come back up at any second. That man was supposed to be a hero, to help people, and yet he was the very opposite. He was a villain of the worst kind. What he'd done, it was unspeakable, something that should never be done to a child. But he was a hero. Surely if he told someone they would stop him, make him go to jail. With this thought in his head, he ignores his churning gut and leaves the house. He doesn't bother to change out of his threadbare shorts, or ragged a shirt, or even to put on shoes, letting the sharp pain of gravel digging into his feet ground him on his search for a hero. It doesn't take long to find one in the hero-saturated city. He stumbles across a sidekick, one he doesn't know the name of, but he's wearing bright colors and a helmet, so he has to be a hero. "Mister!" he calls out quietly. The hero turns, a small smile gracing his face, that quickly turns concerned. "Sweetheart? Are you okay? Where's your mommy?" Shouta flinches at the nickname. It quickly brings memories of the night before, a husky voice purring "sweetheart" in his ear before he broke Shouta. I need help and you're a hero." Shouta whispers, getting closer. The hero crouches down with an encouraging smile. "That's right, I am. How can I help you? Someone did stuff to me. Down there. And I need a hero to make him stop." Shouta sobs, tears leaking through despite his best efforts to stop them. "Do you know who it was? Let me get you to a hospital." "It's okay, because I'm here and I'll make sure things are taken care of," the hero soothes, although his face is pinched in worry. Shouta relaxes minutely. He'd been scared the hero wouldn't believe him, but he was gonna help him. It was the hero Sunlight. "He came to my house." Shouta's face reels back with the strength of the hit directed toward his face. The previously kind face is now contorted with anger. "How dare you lie like that, and about a hero no less? You're just a street urchin, aren't you, lying about your superiors like that?" The sudden change in mannerisms is too much for the 9-year-old to handle. "And no, I'm not, I promise." "He did." The hero slaps him again. "Pathetic. Get out of my sight, and if I hear about you bothering any other heroes with this, I'll make sure you go to jail." It's an empty threat, but a traumatized child isn't going to realize that. Shouta indeed does leave, limping from the pain in his bottom. The small smidge of hope he'd held onto has been completely squashed, and only one thought makes it through the static. Heroes are bad. Heroes hurt him, not villains. Maybe villains weren't even villains. But it had never been a villain that hurt him. It was Mama, his classmates, teachers, everyone that was supposed to be good was bad. Shouta had always wanted to be a hero, ever since he was little, but that desire was quickly twisting into something different. He was called a villain, maybe it was time he started acting like one. Heroes were bad, and he needed to make them pay. He doesn't go home. He knows what will be waiting for him there. Sunlight had promised to come back after dark. It would happen again and again, and the heroes wouldn't believe him. So he doesn't go home, instead he walks in the opposite direction. He'll figure it out eventually, but he won't ever go back there. 10 years later, Shouta takes in the unfamiliar view. It used to be the view he'd see every day, but after 10 years he'd forgotten what it looked like. The house has been empty for years. His mother had OD'd 5 years after he left, but he figured it was time to visit his old home. Leather-clad fingers lace through his, and Shouta turns to look at his partner in crime, and the love of his life Hizashi Yamada. They'd met only a year after Shouta had left. It had been a rough year, Shouta surviving from the thrown-away food in trash cans and stealing. He'd snuck onto a bus and made it across the country. It was in the biggest city of Japan that Shouta had met the former street rat. Shouta had been searching for food in a trash can behind a ramen shop when Hizashi had rounded the corner, heroes hot on his tail. Shouta had used his quirk to cancel out the hero's quirks, and they'd made an escape together. It had been a split-second decision, made more from his hatred for the heroes that caused him to help Hizashi, but he'd never regretted it. He'd taken one look at the muzzle scars on the distrusting boy's face to realize they were one and the same. They'd become a team, learning to survive together. And together, they'd become strong, learned how to fight, and how to win. Now, only 10 years later, Shouta and Hizashi were feared in the underground as the villains Shade and Echo. Hizashi, who was a little insane and with enough bloodlust for the both of them, but kind hands. They ran a tight-knit villain group that, while fairly new, was to be reckoned with. The urge to do good, or to be a hero, had died years ago. Not that they wouldn't do good in their own way. They just wouldn't be heroes to do it. They'd oppose the corrupt heroes, who only proved how horrible they were at every given chance. The only reason Shouta was back was to finish off his business. Even after 10 years, Sunlight had never been found out, or maybe he had, and the heroes just didn't care. Either way, Sunlight was still wandering about pretending to help. Pretending to be a hero. The only good thing was that he'd never truly risen to the heights he'd wanted, forever to be doomed to be a local hero. But Shouta wasn't that scared 9-year-old kid anymore. Now he had power, now he could destroy him. His villain career wouldn't start until he got rid of the person who set him down that path. Are you ready, love? Yes. Let's go kill a hero. Hizashi's grin looks just a little bit feral, just a little bit crazed, something Shouta loves. Shouta walks out of the house, feeling just a little lighter. There were no regrets holding him back, no second thoughts. This was his path, Hizashi was his path. It's easy to find the hero. The now 40-year-old hero still wears the same stupid red skin suit, with the same stupid smile. One nod from Shouta, and Hizashi sends out a quirk-filled scream, knocking the hero and surrounding civilians to their knees. Without proper protection, Hizashi's voice was devastating and disorienting. Shouta slips behind the fallen hero, a bit disappointed in how easy it was to knock him to his knees. He grabs the hero by his hair and slides a knife against his neck. The hero freezes, and Shouta waits patiently for the nearby heroes to come running. They do so quickly, and Shouta is delighted to see another familiar face. He wasn't planning to kill the hero who hadn't believed him, but it'd be hilarious to see him realize the truth. Hizashi sidles behind him, hands wrapped around a civilian's neck. Not a child's, they'd both sworn children off long ago. Even they had their morals after all. Let Sunlight and the civilians go, and we can talk about this. Rocklock calls out, hands held out placatingly. Shouta laughs bitterly. Oh, I'll let him go, but first he needs to tell you all something. Now, Sunlight. He croons in the other's ear. Tell them what you like to do to children in your spare time, and I'll let you go. How? He whispers, the knife nicking his throat a bit, and blood trickling down his throat. There's a reason I'm a villain. I looked up to you, Sunlight, but now you're going to ruin everything you have going for you, or I'll tear you apart in front of their eyes. Shouta takes pleasure in seeing the recognition that flashes across his face. Please, this will ruin my career. Your career or your life? Shouta growls. Just tell us. Rocklock calls out. The heroes around him nod. It can't be that bad. We'll figure it out together. When Sunlight doesn't say anything, Shouta presses the knife deeper. Sunlight yelps and begins to speak with a trembling voice. IIRP children. He sobs, tears leaking from his violet eyes. Silence reigns supreme, Rocklock's hands falling to his sides in surprise. What? One of the sidekicks whispers. Shouda's eyes slide over to the hero who he'd gone to all those years ago to see the despair written across his face. No. He mouths, hands clenched in his hair. Shouta is sure he's thinking of that day all those years ago. It feels as good as he thought it would. Please, I told them, now let me go. Sunlight begs. Shouta hums thoughtfully. Okay. Shouta slashes his neck open without a second thought, blood gushing down onto the already red costume. Not one hero moves to stop him. Faces twisted up in disgust and anger, he nods at Hizashi, who drags the civilian hostage back. Shouta fingers the button in his pocket for a second before pressing it. An explosion across town leaves everyone's ears ringing. We just blew up an apartment building. Better go search for survivors, heroes. Shouta taunts. If any of you stay, we'll kill everyone here. I mean, and who knows how many other bombs we planted. Teases, pressing the button again, and setting off an explosion at the bank. The heroes do as he says, running off. Hizashi throws the civilian away with a disgusted look, brushing off his costume. How did it feel, baby? He asks, linking their hands together. Better than I could have imagined. Though I wish I could have tortured him more. Shouta sighs. Well, ready to rule the world? Hizashi giggles happily. Absolutely. They walk away, amongst the smoke and fire, hands swinging happily. They have the rest of their lives together, and things haven't ever looked better. Shouta had been having a particularly pleasant day up until he walked past an alley and was promptly rammed into. The now 23-year-old villain falls on the ground, hand automatically reaching for a knife while cursing himself. He knew better than to let his guard down, and yet here he was. But when he reaches to stab his assailant, he's met by wide, innocent, childish eyes. He's quick to release the knife. He hadn't broken his vow to never harm a child since becoming a villain, and he wasn't about to start now. Once the child has recovered from the shock of coming to a stop rapidly, he leaps up and begins to apologize profusely. I'm so sorry, mister. I didn't mean to run into you, please forgive me. Shouta sighs and stands up, dusting himself off. He eyes the child curiously. With forest green eyes and hair, he would assume the child had a plant quirk, maybe latent. He looks enough like a bush that Shouta would place money on his quirk being looking like a plant. He'll admit it's rather cute. He's breathing heavily, as if he just finished running a marathon, and his clothes are mussed up, perhaps a bit small. It's not enough to make Shouta worry. Tokyo has several dirt-poor districts, one of which Shouta is in currently. It's not odd to see a child in messy old clothes. It's okay, kid, but you should watch where you're going. Other people won't be as nice. Shouta warns. That should have been the end of it, Shouta allowed to continue on his way to meet up with his wonderful husband, and the child continuing on to wherever he was in such a hurry, but that wasn't to be. As soon as he begins to walk away, he hears explosions echoing from the alley the kid had just ran out of. Said child squeaks in distress and darts past the villain. Instinctively, he grabs the child by the collar as he runs by, and waits to see exactly who it is that has caused the child so much distress. He's aware of the child struggling to get out of his grasp, but ignores it for the time being in favor of listening to the yelling echoing from the alley. I saw that useless Deku come this way. Hurry up, slowpokes, it's time to make that quirkless loser pay for beating me in the math test. 3 more children throw themselves out of the alley, one with explosions crackling from his palms, one with red leathery wings, and the other seemingly normal. Mister, please let me go. I'm sorry for running into you, but Kakin is gonna see me. The child in his grasp whispers desperately, tugging at the hand twisted in his collar. Shouta thinks through his options. There's not a hero or a villain chasing the child. Most villains would know better anyways. He and his group had basically eradicated child trafficking in the last few years. And any villain that made the choice to touch a child knew that sooner or later Shade would be coming to avenge the child. He wasn't wearing his villain costume either, so it would be dangerous to use his quirk. This was just silly schoolhouse bullying, and yet something urged Shouta to help. It wasn't often that he felt these urges, and it was a child. Perhaps if he scared them away, the green-haired child would have an easier time of it. One of the bullies had mentioned being quirkless after all, and Shouta was well aware of the statistics for the quirkless. Decision made in a split second, Shouta stands up straight and coughs lightly. As soon as the bullies turn toward him, he drags the struggling child in his grasp forward. The one with the explosion quirk shouts victoriously, "TUF useless Deku." Did you try to get an adult to help? You should know better by now, no one wants to help such a pathetic dog. The child throws himself forward using his quirk, and Shouta is quick to erase all 3 of their quirks. He takes great pleasure in watching 2 of the 3 children fall to the ground in a heap. Finally, the green-haired child stops struggling with a gasp. It. Shouta takes this as a sign that he can release the child. The tiny green-haired kid scrambles to get behind him. What are you doing? Kaken's quirk is really strong, he's just gonna be mad. Just let him do whatever he wants to me. I don't want him to hurt you. The kid hisses. Shouta turns until he can give the kid a smile, which he is sure is terrifying. Don't worry, kiddo, he's not gonna hurt me. The explosion kid is off of the ground and seething. Beach. Shouta waits until he's in reach to strike. It's pathetically easy to pin the child to the wall, a hand around his neck. He leans in with a smirk. Blondie tries to struggle for a few seconds before realizing the position he's in. Once Shouta is sure the kid has sheet his pants, he lets up, allowing him to breathe and begins to speak. I don't like your attitude, you little sheet. Do you really think you're the biggest thing in these streets? Well, let me be the first to tell you that you aren't. In fact, you're probably the smallest thing here. And I really don't like you acting like you are. So I'm going to give you one chance to run. And if you don't take it, then I won't hesitate to put you in a hospital. Shouta breathes into the kid's ear. He tightens his grip for a few moments until the child is gasping for air and crying before he lets go. As soon as he lets go, the child is off, scrambling down the road. He falls twice, landing hard in the gravel, before he pulls himself up and he's off again. His 2 lackeys, who didn't even try to do anything, ran with him. Truly pathetic. He turns back to the green child, only to find empty space. He sighs but can't really blame the kiddo. It was a chance to get away from his bully, and he was probably just as terrified as the others. With nothing else to do here, he continues on his way to the cat cafe he was meeting his husband at. He's met halfway there by Hizashi, who looks concerned. Did anything exciting happen on your way here? When I tried to text you, you didn't respond. Code for when he checked. Shouta's tracker, it had been in the same place for a good 5 minutes. Shouta smiles softly. No, Hizashi, I just found a cute cat in trouble. I'll tell you all about it when we get home. But first, the kid. Are you excited to try the food? Code for found a child in trouble but can't talk about it in public. And that should have been that, besides an awkward conversation with his husband as to why he felt the need to insert himself into a situation between children who couldn't have been more than 9. Only it wasn't. Just a few days later, Shouta met the child again, although this time was far more tame and he was with Hizashi. Even villains have to eat, and so they'd gone to the local grocer to pick up supplies for that night's dinner. It was homely and quaint in a way that Shouta treasures. As much as he loves the psychotic and bloodthirsty side of his husband, he also enjoys the mundane things with the love of his life. He'd been quick to spot the child, who was slipping some medical supplies in his pocket. He was stealing, which wasn't something Shouta was going to stop him from doing. It was how he survived in the beginning after all, and he himself was a villain, of course. He paid for his groceries now, only because he had much bigger fish to fry than getting held up in a store robbery every few days. He nudges Hizashi, who looks at him concerned. That's the kiddo who was being chased. He murmurs quietly in Hizashi's ear. His husband perks up immediately. He'd been quite curious about the child who caught Shouta's attention and disappointed to know that he hadn't caught the child's name. Ah, he's stealing. He's like a mini-us, except bad at it. Hizashi snickers. Shouta sighs and rolls his eyes, but pauses when he catches sight of the child's face when he turns around. Not only does the kid have a black eye, there's a handprint burned into the kid's face. That little brat had ignored him? Oh, he was dead. What happened to him? Shouta hears Hizashi squawk from next to him. It's enough to catch the attention of the kiddo, who blanches and limps away quickly once he catches sight of Shouta. Wait, why is he leaving? Hizashi pouts. Whoever did that needs to be killed. Ooh, I'll do it, babe. It's been a while since I've gotten my hands on a child abuser. Let me go get the little listener's name. I'll be right back. Shouta stops him from running after the kid. As far as I know, it was another child, Hizashi. Hizashi does a double take, face scrunching up in confusion. A child? Shouta has to cut off his husband's quirk, eyes flaring red in irritation. What are children on these days? I mean, that's an entire handprint that will most likely scar on that kid's face. He can't be more than 8 or 9. Shouta nods. Yeah, I might have to make an exception to the rule. This has severely set me off. Shouta mutters. That brat ignored my warning, and obviously the other kid paid. As far as I know, it's just because the kid is quirkless as well. Hizashi scowls. Seriously? I could have sworn the kid had a shrubbery quirk with how green he was. But either way, the kid that did that to Greenie is just going to grow up to be a FING abuser. Yeah, let's go see if we can get the bush to talk. In agreement, the husbands stride forward in tandem to find the small child. It's slightly concerning to Shouta that the kid is out after dark when he's so young, but he brushes it aside in favor of finding out the bully's name. They find him cornered by a store employee, which isn't surprising if Shouta is being honest. He already looked suspicious with those injuries, not to mention how he was alone in here. Add in the bulging pockets and you'd have to be an idiot to not see the kid stealing, or not paying attention. Shouta reaches the employee just in time to stop the employee from hitting the child. I don't take kindly to people who hit children. If the attempted theft is a problem, I'll pay for his items. Understood, he growls in the employee's ear. Why yes sir. Good, now go back to the counter, you idiot. Shouta crouches in front of the trembling child. Hand it over, problem child. Greenie begins to empty his pockets out, eyes on the ground. Why you don't have to, mister. I don't do shit I don't want to do, so don't argue with me about this. Shouta growls. Hizashi laughs and crouches down beside them. He sure doesn't. It's torture to get this grump to dress up for date night. Hizashi teases loudly. I'm Yamada Hizashi, but you can call me Zashi if you like. What's your name, little listener? The shrub eyes them distrustfully. Shouta himself stares at the things the kid had placed in his hands distastefully. The kid had obviously picked out the bare minimum and the cheapest sheet. That wasn't going to do. Hizashi nudges him sharply. Shouta takes that as his cue to introduce himself to the child. I'm Shouta. Do you have a name so I can stop calling you shrub? He drawls, throwing the meager medical supplies in their cart. The kid blinks at him slowly, and Shouta hates how cute he finds it. The bush is growing on him, even after only 2 meetings. More than likely because the kid reminded himself of, well, himself so much. After a few seconds of silence, the kid speaks. Izuku. Hizashi laughs. Do you have a last name, little listener? Izuku shakes his head firmly. Not supposed to give my name to strangers. Hizashi's grin turns sharp. Well, aren't you a clever little thing? I suppose you're right, we are strangers. Well then, since those supplies you grabbed are obviously not sufficient, why don't we go get you some real medical gear? Hizashi doesn't wait for an answer, and scoops the child up to deposit him in their cart. Hey, take me out of this. Izuku cries, struggling against the hands that are strapping him in. It's concerning that he's small enough to do so, but perhaps he's younger than they thought. No can do, buckaroo. We saw you limping and there's no way we're gonna let you walk around on that foot in here. And we still have some things to pick out before we can check out, so you just chill in there, okay? Izuku clearly doesn't like it, but anytime he reaches for the buckle, he's stopped by the warning glint in Hizashi's eyes. They patter around the store for a few more minutes, stopping by the medical section again. This provokes another flurry of arguments. You really don't have to get me anything different. I can use what's in the cart. Both villains ignore him and load the cart up with the best bandages, salves and painkillers they can find in a local grocer. Which isn't great, but much better than what the kid had grabbed. Once they've finished grabbing their items, they make their way to the front to pay. The cashier is clearly nervous as he checks them out, not helped by the Cheshire grins both of them wear as they leer at the adult. Hizashi lets the pouting child out of the cart once they're checked out, and makes sure to stay out of arm's reach in case Hizashi tries to pick him up again. Probably a smart idea considering his husband's lack of personal boundaries. Still, Shouta takes the boy by the shoulder and steers him toward the car. He's not idiotic enough to try and get him to sit in their car, He knows full well it'll send the boy into a panic attack. Instead, he picks the boy up for a split second to set him on top of the car. Hizashi quickly loads the bags into the car, slipping out the medical bills they'd bought and setting them next to the boy. Want to tell me how you got these injuries? Shouta asks quietly. Izuku stubbornly keeps his mouth sealed tight. I remember you calling that explosion kid by a nickname, Kaken was it? He didn't happen to do this, did he? Shouta drawls. By the way Izuku freezes, he's obviously correct. Will you tell me his real name? Izuku shakes his head firmly. Shouta expertly opens the antiseptic they bought and slathers it onto the boy's wound. Izuku struggles, but Shouta keeps his grip steady. He's had years of practice at this, he'd rather do it than a tiny child. He lets it sit for a few minutes, opening the gauze and medical tape they'd grabbed as he waits. Okay, want to tell me why you're out here so late? Again no reply. Shouta tries various versions of these questions to no avail. The boy keeps his mouth stubbornly shut, no matter what Shouta asks. Shouta carefully spreads burn cream on the handprint and tapes the gauze to it loosely. It needs to be covered, but he'd like it to be able to breathe as well. We just want to help you, kiddo. Hizashi says softly, smiling at the scowling child. No. Shouta nearly killed Kaken, and then Kaken was even madder. I don't want your help. Izuku declares. Shouta scowls. It was obvious Izuku had some delusions about this Kaken. He should have been delighted that someone finally stood up to this Kaken, even if the brat didn't listen. And if Izuku would just give up the kid's name, they'd be able to make sure he was permanently out of the way. Though he hadn't ever wanted to hurt a child, it was obvious this child was going to grow up into everything he hated. That explosion quirk was strong, he'd probably been praised for it his entire life. And if at such a young age he was willing to be this violent, then he deserved everything coming to him. After a few more minutes of interrogation come up empty as Shouta wraps the kid's ankle and checks for any more wounds. Shouta gives up. He'd have to see if he could find the kid through the quirk registry. Once Izuku is patched up, he slowly packs the supplies and gives them to the kid, making sure to slip Hizashi and his number in there in case the kid changes his mind. I can keep them? Course kiddo. I've got more than enough medical supplies than I know what to do with. Hizashi takes over from there. Even though it's obvious the kid wants to leave, Hizashi has one more thing he wants to say. Now, even though you won't tell us why you needed to shoplift, at the very least I want to give you some pointers on how to do it right. You looked way too suspicious in there and your pockets were literally bulging with stuff. The trick is to actually interact with the cashier and preferably you actually buy something, even if it's small. But just a simple wave to the cashier will relax their guard, and then talk to them at the register. Or, make a show of what you're looking for not being in. Even make up a fake product, and ask them if it's in if you can't buy something. This will give you a chance to pursue the shelves and grab what you need. When they say they've never heard of it, you can make a show out of it, tell them how you had it when you were younger and how you've been searching for it ever since. And since you're a kid, mentioning your mom is outside or at another store is always good for deflecting suspicion. Also, never stay in the line of sight of the cashier when you grab something. This will be easy for you since you're so small. Make sure you don't grab something that will make a lot of noise, or if you have to then put it in something that'll muffle it. A good way to do that is if it's right after school, you could bring a backpack. Just make sure no one else is in here to see you. Izuku looks like he wants to take notes. But if you're just going to put it on your person, then don't put anything bigger than a chapstick in your pockets. The rest, you can hide in sleeves, shirts, in your pants. Again, just make sure you're paying attention. Also try to change up your look some when you come in. That way you can hit the store several times without getting caught if you're ever noticed on the cameras or by an employee. A hat or hoodie will do wonders. One time I even pretended I didn't have an arm. Shouta sighs. Hizashi obviously likes this kid, he'll go on for hours if he isn't stopped now. Zashi, I think he gets it. Now we need to get home, unless the kid wants to answer some questions. He states, raising an eyebrow at the kid. Izuku immediately shuts down again and shakes his head. Alright, well it's too late for you to be wandering. We'll take you home. It's a last-ditch effort to find out some information from the kid that Shouta is quickly becoming fond of. Izuku glares at him, and before either adult can move takes off. Hizashi looks like he's about to start running after him, but Shouta stops him. There's no point, the kid is a closed book. Reluctantly Hizashi clambers into the car. Shouta quickly follows after he can't see Izuku anymore. Oh my god, Shouta, he's so cute, I totally see why you ran his bully off now. I just wanted to squeeze him forever and ever and ever. Please tell me we aren't giving up on murdering his bully. Shouta shakes his head. We can check the quirk registry, but without more details, it'll be hard to find him. And the kid seems to think it's fine, but I do want to check in on his home life at the very least. He shouldn't have to be shoplifting medical supplies. If his parents are doing anything, Shouta trails off threateningly. We'll torture and murder them. Shouta nods with a smirk. While he loves the domesticity he and his partner have, he loves seeing the bloodthirsty side come out. It was always so effin' hot to see him covered in blood. It's the third and final time he comes across Izuku that Shouta breaks. Their search had been fruitless, without their full or real names. They would have had to hack into the quirk registry, and then searched it for more than likely days to find a match. It was too much time and effort to put into a kid that didn't seem to want the time or effort. So they put it out of their mind, and the next few weeks were normal for the villains. The third time Shouta ran into Izuku eerily mimicked the first time they'd met, only this time Shouta is in full villain garb. It was nothing special. He had reinforced pants with plenty of pockets to hold whatever he needed to carry, and a long-sleeved shirt that was also reinforced. It was all black, to blend into the shadows, and a hood that shadowed his face. When he chose to remove the hood, he had an all-white mask that covered everything except his eyes. He was told by Hizashi over and over that he looked like a psychopath, and then a demon when his quirk came on. Hizashi adored it. He was just coming back from a meeting with the local Yakuza about them wanting to move drags over his territory. He'd said no, of course. He wasn't a fan of the Yakuza or drags, and they hadn't offered him anything worthwhile. He's sure they'll try to start a turf war and then they'll be eradicated from the city, just like anything else that stood in Shouta's way. Once again he wasn't paying attention, far too used to villains and heroes alike doing anything they could to avoid the shade in the night when he was rammed into from the side. When Shouta looks down, he's met by a head full of green hair. As much as he'd like to stay and help the kid or try to get some information out of the kid, he's still dressed in villain garb. He would have thought that the kid would have ran off by now or at least apologized, but no. The child doesn't even look at him. Shouta can't help the pang of worry that echoes in his gut. He's already fond of the kid, and something is wrong here. He tries to touch the kid, only for him to JRK away, falling to the ground and scooching up against the wall, hands clasped against his mouth. His fingers are white from the strain. Shouta frowns and steps forward. Kid! His voice is warped through the modulator, so the kid shouldn't recognize it. A closer look, and Shouta can see that the kid is heavily disassociated. He'd probably been running until forcibly stopped by Shouta's body. Are you okay? He goes to pry the kid's fingers away from his mouth to no avail. He's stronger than he looks. Shouta scowls and takes a minute to think of the facts. There is a child in front of him that he's grown rather fond of in the 2 short meetings he's had. The child just reminded him of him when he was a kid, which probably wasn't a good sign. It's also nearing 3 in the morning, and the child is heavily disassociated and won't let go of his mouth. This basically confirms it for Shouta. The kid had a bad home life. So what to do? Well, first he needs to see what's behind the kid's mouth and call Hizashi. He goes with the easier option first. Hizashi picks up on the first ring. Hey babe, how did the meeting go? Any bloodshed? It was fine. Listen, I've got the kiddo in front of me and something's wrong. I'm gonna bring him home, and we can decide what to do with him there. Wicked? Do you mean the cute green kid from the grocer? We should keep him. If something is bad enough that we need to bring him home, then he obviously can't go back to whatever home he has. And we've talked about a family before. He'll be such a cute addition to our family, and then I can be a papa, and you can be a dad. Hizashi crows. Shouta hums thoughtfully. That's not a bad idea. I'm sure he'll hate us for a while, but it's not like we can do it any of the legal ways. They talked about a kid, and deemed it too risky. But here was an adorable child that had caught both of their attention and was obviously in need of a good home, if the running around at 3 in the morning disassociated had anything to say about it. His hands are clawed around his mouth. I tried to pull them off earlier so I could see, but he wasn't letting go. I'm going to try again before I head back with him. MK, oh my god, we're gonna adopt a child. I can't wait to tell our friends about him, and let them meet him. It now decided that they were just gonna technically adopt the child. Shouta lifts his mask so the child won't be even more scared if he comes to awareness. It's slow going, the child most likely has hysterical strength running through his body, which worries Shouta. What could possibly be behind his hands, that was so bad he wouldn't let anyone look, and was most likely hurting his mouth to keep people from looking? His jaw didn't seem broken, or even bruised. Shouta could see the faint burn scar, but that was it. Finally, Shouta manages to pry a finger off, Hizashi chatting away in his ear as he does, and once the finger goes, he's able to pry the rest of it off much easier. The phone falls away from his ear and clatters to the ground as he sees what's underneath. Holy F. Izuku. He can hear the tinny voice of Hizashi over the phone but pays no attention. As if a cord had been cut, Izuku passes out, and Shouta is left to look at the mess of blood that had been trapped underneath the kid's hands. Shouta touches the kid's swollen lip carefully, wincing at what he feels. Some FNG villain. It had to be a villain because if a parent or student could do this, Shouta is pretty sure he was gonna burn the world down. But some villain had taken steel wire and sewn the kid's mouth shut. It had obviously been in his mouth for at least a day, maybe a couple if they went by the red and irritated skin around the puncture wound. It was the beginning of an infection. Someone had hurt his kid. And yes, it was his kid, even if they'd only decided to keep him a minute ago, it was his kid. They had hurt him, taken a large needle and thread, larger than you would normally see, wrapped steel wire around it, and shoved it through his kid's mouth over and over. And for what? Because he was quirkless? If the world thought Shade and Echo was bad now, then just wait. Shouta can feel the flush of rage starting to overtake his mind, but he has to fight it. As much as he'd like to go and murder someone to blow some steam off, he needs to get Izuku back to the base, and have Hizashi get the doctor ready. Hizashi. He scoops the phone up and presses it back into his ear. Zashi is of course freaking out. Sho, are you okay? Did something happen? I have your location, I'm putting shoes on and coming to your location. Zashi, I'm fine, but you need to go to the base, wake the doctor and then you need to leave. Shouta demands, scooping the now limp kid up one arm. But why? Is it that bad? Is something wrong with our Kidasucho? Why can't I be there? Do I need to go murder someone? It's just like Zashi to take to something so quickly, Shouta thinks fondly as he runs through the streets. Yes, he needs the doctor and it is that bad. And you're definitely going to get to have some blood on your hands in the next few weeks, but for now no. What's wrong with our kid is going to trigger you, Sunshine, so I need you to get the doctor ready and then go home. Zashi goes quiet. Sho, the only thing that would trigger me is a muzzle. Did someone muzzle my baby? I don't care if it happened before I decided he was my baby, he's mine now. Shouta sighs. Sunshine dash. Sho, tell me. Shouta winces. That is very much so, Zashi's. I'm going to give you 3 seconds to tell me the truth or I'm going to ruin everything you own. Voice. It's not a muzzle, no. Someone took steel wire and sewed his mouth shut. So I need you to not be there, because when you get triggered you forget everything and try to kill everyone. That can't happen right now, so please just cooperate. Shouta pleads. They sewed his mouth shut? With steel wire. Shouta gulps at the malice in Hizashi's voice. It's not when Hizashi starts yelling with anger that you should be scared, it's when he becomes quiet. Yes. I'll get the doctor ready and go. You're right that I shouldn't be there for this. I'll get his room ready instead, okay? Shouta sighs in relief. Thank you, Sunshine. I'll tell you when it's safe to come back, okay? And thank you for getting his room ready, that'll make things so much easier. I love you, okay? I love you too. Hizashi's voice is still deadly quiet, and Shouta knows that he'll most likely find someone to kill before he heads home. Shouta can't blame him, he'd wanted to do the same thing of course. It takes 20 minutes to make it to their villain base. Hizashi is nowhere in sight, but the doctor is ready with a gurney. Shouta lays his new kid on it softly and the doctor wastes no time in wheeling him away. There shouldn't be any complications, but the doctor would need to check for any other injuries that Shouta didn't look for. It was sure to be a long night, but long nights are something Shouta is used to. So instead of panicking, he settles down into a chair just outside of the doctor's room to wait. Once they find out who did this to their kid, they would make sure that that person regretted ever coming out of the womb chapter text. Izuku floats in and out of consciousness at first. He can vaguely hear voices above him, a deep grumble and one that reminds him of sunshine. They're familiar, but he can't quite place them, and the other voices that trickle through he can't place at all. He doesn't hear what they're saying, just the soothing of their voices. He feels like he should be scared, but he's so warm, and his limbs are loose and relaxed, like he's floating in the middle of a sun-warmed lake. He can't remember the last time he felt safe or warm, but when unfamiliar hands land in his hair, or hold his own hand, he can't help but to sink back into the warmth just a little bit more. There's no hurry to wake up and go back to reality, to a barren room, and a mother who enjoys hurting him. No need to go back to the bullies that left handprints of all different sizes burned into his skin. It briefly occurs to him that he might be dead. The last thing he remembers after the attack is running and running until something stopped him. But if this is what death feels like, if it is peace, and floating in an ocean of warmth, then he doesn't mind. But the peace doesn't last forever. As time goes on, the tranquility begins to rescind, and his limbs stop feeling weightless. Familiar aches and pains come back in, settling into his bones like an old friend. The voices become clearer, and he can grasp snippets of conversations happening around him. Malnutrition, if you look at his scans. He'll be so sweet. Have you gotten his? With the knowledge that he's not dead, comes the fear of the unknown. He doesn't know where he is, or why they're being nice or what they want. As much as he wants to figure out what's going on, his eyes refuse to open, seemingly glued together. Anytime it feels like he's fighting his way to consciousness, sleep will crash over him again, pulling him farther under. But when consciousness does come, it comes quickly. He can hear someone humming in the corner, a lullaby he thinks, though he's never had one sung to him. His eyes fly open and he's met with a bright light hanging directly over him. He hisses in pain and clenches his eyes closed. Now that he's awake, the aches and pain truly sinks in. He can feel the familiar scratchiness of bandages wrapped around his hands and midsection. The area around his lips hurt. He can remember pain and crying, pleading for mercy as they held him down. He hadn't gotten it. "Darling," the sunshine voice whispers quietly. He hears the scraping of a chair moving, and then there's a presence right next to him, and a hand in his. "Are you awake?" Izuku blinks his eyes open again, this time much more cautiously. The light is blocked out by a head, and he's able to adjust more easily to being awake. It takes him a few seconds to focus on the person bending over him, but when he does, he's struck once again by how familiar he is, not just his voice. He knows this person with their sickly green eyes and long blonde hair. It hits him a few seconds later. This was the stranger from the store, who screamed of danger, but with hands that were gentle, and who'd bought him those medical supplies with the other stranger he'd met before. The one who'd tried to help, but only made things worse once Kaken and the others realized he wasn't actually going to come back. He'd thought the strangers were kind, if not a little touchy, which was wrong. Adults aren't supposed to be kind. His name was Hizashi. Izuku mumbles, wincing when his voice cracks from misuse. The name must be right, if the blinding smile the man sends him says anything. "That's right, Bunny. Sho is gonna be so mad he wasn't here when you woke up." His eyes widened as if he just thought of something. "I need to call him and the doctor. You're also probably thirsty, aren't you? How are you feeling?" The hand slips from his, and Izuku mourns the loss. When was the last time someone touched him willingly? Hizashi flits around, phone held to his ear. When Izuku tries to sit up, Hizashi is back at his side, pressing him down gently. "Don't get up, Bunny. Sho and the doctor will be here soon, okay? We need to make sure you're okay first." True to his word, a small stout man with a large mustache toddles in, a stethoscope around his neck, and a lab coat on. While they'd waited, Hizashi had brought him a cup of water, helping him drink it so he doesn't make a mess, so at the very least his throat hurts a bit less. Seconds after the doctor, comes the other stranger named Sho. As soon as he sees Izuku awake, something in his posture changes, though Izuku isn't sure what it is exactly. He places a hand in Izuku's tangled curls with a small smile. "Glad to see you're up, kid," he mumbles lowly. Izuku nods slowly, watching the doctor with apprehensive eyes. Most doctors won't even service him due to his quirk status. It was weird to be so close to one. Why am I here? How am I here? The last thing I remember, the man's face darkens, and so does Hizashi's. It's a bit terrifying how quickly their attitude changes. In the end, it's the doctor who answers the question, not the other two men. The doctor bustles around him, unwrapping his injuries and checking them for a few seconds, before rewrapping them. "Well, young man, Master Shouta brought you in a few days ago with quite an extensive list of injuries. The most worrisome, of course, was your mouth. The wounds had gotten infected while you were running around, so the best thing to do was put you in a medicated coma while you healed. Not to mention, I did a bit of work on some of your older injuries, and they needed time to heal without you moving them around. You've woken up a little early, but it's nothing to worry about. Just means you're stronger than you look. You've been under for about a week," the doctor states with a smile. Izuku doesn't know why something feels so off about this doctor, but Izuku doesn't like him. But at least he knows how and why he's here. Shouta had found him and brought him to get healed. That was fine. For some reason the man was kinder than any adult had any right being, but the longer he was here, the more vulnerable he was. Besides, he has a lot of things he needs to figure out now. Going home isn't an option anymore. He'll die, and as much as Izuku hates himself, he's not ready to die yet. "So when can I leave?" Izuku whispers, fiddling with the bandages around his fingers. He doesn't remember hurting his fingers, but if they're wrapped up, then something must be wrong. Hizashi and Shouta come to sit next to him, Shouta resting his hand back in Izuku's hair, and Hizashi nabbing the hand he was messing with. "Well, you were severely injured when the master brought you in. Not just your current wounds, but old injuries that had healed wrong. Did you ever have trouble with your hands shaking?" Izuku frowns. He doesn't want to discuss what's wrong with his body, he wants to know when he can leave, or if he's going to have to sneak out. But still he answers, "Yes, sometimes they shake so bad I can't even hold a pencil." Izuku mutters, "That's to be expected. You had significant nerve damage in your fingers, as if someone had been reaching into your hands and pulling and dislodging your nerves, which is frankly ridiculous. I'm not sure what was done to your hands, but it messed them up extensively. It took me hours of surgery to fix them, and there will still be some shaking but not quite as extensive as before. But if you stick to the exercises I assign, the shakes will go away altogether eventually. Not to mention the multiple bone fractures that healed wrong in your arms and legs. Sooner, rather than later, I'll need to re-break those so we can set them properly, but that can wait at least a few weeks so you can heal from your newer wounds. What was done to your mouth was very serious. If the person who sewed your lips together had placed them anywhere else, then your face would have been permanently paralyzed." Izuku's eyes widen as the doctor goes on. He knows that the nerve damage is from his mama, and the bone breaks aren't unsurprising either, since he was never allowed access to medical care. But for his entire face to be paralyzed, Izuku shivers at the thought. He would have died if that happened, Izuku knows it. Then a thought occurs to him. Wait, re-break them? No, I need to know when I can leave. Thank you for your hospitality, but I don't want to stay here longer than I need to, and the broken bones aren't hurting anybody. Izuku protests. Darling, don't be rude. You need to do what's best for your body. I know it might sound awful to have to re-break your bones, but the doctor here explained how not doing it now could cause you a lot of pain in the future. And me and your dad will be here every step of the way to make the healing process as comfortable as possible. Several things strike Izuku as off from that statement, but what really catches his attention is the dad. His dad left him when he was, and he hadn't been back since. For him to come back now is absolutely ridiculous. His previously calmish state breaks, and panic begins to flow through his body. What the F? Do you mean Dad? I want to leave now. Izuku screeches, trying to pry his hand out of Zashi's. Things feel like they've escalated abruptly since everyone arrived, and Izuku doesn't like it one bit. He needs to leave, right Fanji now? It hurts his hand when he tries to pull it out of the blonde's, but he ignores the twinges of pain in favor of getting up. His struggles are quickly stopped by a firm hand on his chest as he's carefully pushed to the bed. Zashi, strap his wrist down, we don't want to aggravate his wounds. Izuku screeches animalistically as straps are wrapped around his chest, stomach, legs, and arms. Once he is no longer able to move, the hand lets go of his chest, and Shouta leans down to look him in the eyes. Izuku tries to struggle against the straps, but it's quickly obvious that it's not going to give any time soon. Don't disrespect your papa like that. You're at most 10 years old, which is far too young to have a potty mouth, and we need to finish going over your wounds with the doctor. We'll answer your questions afterwards, understood? Izuku doesn't reply, eyes darting between the two adults in front of him. It's all coming together now, the kindness the adults were giving him, the way they're being so touchy. They want to be his parents, and lure him into a false sense of security to hurt him even more. He won't let them. He'd been surviving on his own just fine. Shouta seems to take his silence as acceptance, because the man turns back to the doctor, hand carding through Izuku's curls slowly. Izuku doesn't bother to pay attention to what the doctor is saying anymore, because it's not gonna happen. As soon as he can, he's going to escape and hightail it out of Tokyo. It's obvious that this city holds nothing good for the 9-year-old. Izuku doesn't know how long the adults drone on, but the longer it goes on for, the sleepier he gets. The hand carding through his curls feels good as much as he hates to admit it, and he'd only just woken up from a coma. Much to Izuku's distress, he finds his breath evening out, and his eyes growing heavier. When the adults notice, he hears Hizashi cooing at him, and a warm blanket being tucked against him. Ah, it's okay, Bunny, this is probably boring for someone so young. You go ahead and nap and we can talk more when you wake up again. 2 kisses pressed against his forehead and Izuku is gone to the world. But even as Izuku drifts off, it doesn't stop him from taking one last jab at the adults who'd referred to themselves as his parents. He mumbles. He's sure the adults had something to say about that, but he's not awake to hear it at least. Shouta stares down at his new son. He knows that the child is stubborn from past interactions, and that the next few weeks would be rough on him and Hizashi, but he wishes they could just skip past all of the anger and lashing out. Especially since his new kid seems to have the vocabulary of a sailor. Shouta! Hizashi cries. Our son is so cute. Shouta snorts, but does not disagree. It was hard to stay mad at the sleeping baby face. The doctor coughs slightly and both adults turn to look at the old man. Well, as I was saying before, his injuries are well on their way to being healed. I wouldn't recommend any hard labor, of course, but he should be able to move around as long as it's kept to a minimum for the next couple of days. I'd like to keep him overnight within 4, try to pack in as many of those vitamins and nutrients as we can before you take him home. I'm assuming you both will be spending the night since he's woken up? Shouta and Hizashi nod in tandem. Well then I'll bring in 2 cots for you and I'll have dinner delivered at in the morning. I'll give you the nutrition plan I've drawn up to get him back to a healthy weight. The doctor takes his leave after that. Without prying eyes on them, Hizashi immediately joins Shouta on the other side of the medical bed, sitting on top of Shuta's lap with a smile. I'm so happy he woke up, Sho. Now we can explain to him that we're gonna be his new parents and murder everyone who ever hurt him. Shouta smiles and places a kiss on the side of Hizashi's jaw. I'm not sure he'll be the happiest about that, Hizashi. He seemed very determined to leave. Hizashi pouts for a moment. Well, then we'll just have to make him see how much we already adore him. Shouta leans back, making sure not to disrupt any of the wires that are hanging off the small child in the bed with them. We will, don't worry. But we're gonna have to have a long talk with him, make sure he understands that we're his parents now, and preferably get him to spill some names. The sooner we have them, the sooner we can turn them into fish bait. Shouta says quietly. Are we gonna tell him we're villains? Well, I think it's obvious since this is technically a kidnapping, but yes. There's no point in hiding our status from him, it'll just make him trusting us that much harder when he inevitably finds out. Not to mention when he's older, I'd love it if he joined us. Hizashi makes an approving noise. Good, I don't want to lie to our new bunny. The two spend the next few hours before dinner just enjoying each other's company. It feels like the calm before the storm, especially as Izuku starts to slowly wake up, face scrunching up as he yawns and attempts to stretch. He seems to fully come to when he realizes his movements are still restricted. What the F dash? Their small child whines, pulling at the straps. I'm still locked up? A knock at the door. Hizashi goes to open it, and Shouta smiles down at their kid, who seems to only just notice him. Izuku had woken up just in time for dinner. Language. And no, not locked up. Restrained until we can trust you not to aggravate your wounds. Izuku rolls his eyes. I won't aggravate them. Shouta smirks. Fine, I'll let you up, since I'm pretty sure that's dinner and I'm sure you want to feed yourself on one condition. What is it? Izuku asks warily. If he wants to escape, he needs to be untied. You answer all of our questions. Shouta waits for Izuku's reluctant nod before unlatching the locks and helping Izuku up slowly. Once Izuku is settled, he places the dinner tray Hizashi had brought in over Izuku's lap. It's just a simple soup since they don't want to give Izuku anything too heavy after the coma. It's quiet at first, Izuku eyeing them warily. While he'd seemed okay with them earlier, as soon as they'd called themselves his parents, his hackles had raised. Once he's deemed it safe to take a sip of soup, he looks away and reaches for the spoon. The simple chicken stock tastes like heaven to the starving boy, and quickly he's focused on finishing the food before it's taken from him, scarfing down 2 big bites, and nearly choking several times. Calm down, Izuku. We won't take it from you, and you'll make yourself sick eating so quickly. Izuku ignores the reprimand, forgoing the spoon altogether and lifting the bowl up to his lips with shaky hands. Some of the soup splashes onto his hospital frock, and that seems to be the final straw for Hizashi. He reaches out and pulls it out of Izuku's hands, setting it back down on his dinner tray. It's okay, Izuku, your food isn't going to disappear, and we aren't going to take it from you, but you need to slow down. You're heavily malnourished. If you eat too quickly, then you'll throw up. He scolds, handing Izuku a new spoon to replace the one he'd tossed onto his. Fetches. Izuku glares at them, but slows down anyways, his stomach protesting the sudden amount of food in his stomach. Not that he'd admit that the adults were right. Hizashi and Shouta try to make pleasant conversation with the 9-year-old, but Izuku stays stubbornly silent. Once the food is finished and Shouta has moved the trays onto a table on the opposite side of the room, the 2 adults come back to sit next to Izuku. You've been silent all through dinner, but you said if I let you up so you can eat by yourself then you'd answer our questions, Izuku, so I expect some answers. Shouta warns. How old are you? Izuku can't think of any harm it would cause to tell the men his age. 9. He misses the raw fury in their eyes at his admission. If he had, then perhaps he wouldn't have answered their next questions. Hizashi and Shouta, on the other hand, can't stop the rage that boils in their stomachs. The idea that a child who wasn't even in double digits would have nerve damage in their hands, 16 broken bones that had healed wrong, and worse, made them want to burn down the world and dance in the ashes of a world that would never hurt their child again. Okay, you're a bit younger than we thought you were, but that's not a problem. Hizashi smiles at the small boy. We know your first name is Izuku, what's your last name? Izuku scowls. Why should I tell you? He sneers, the sheets laid over his lap in his hands. The sting of pain helps ground him. Well, you promised to answer our questions. Shouta responds easily. Izuku snorts. I lied. He mutters, shuffling around. Adults always lie to me, so why can't I do the same? Hizashi and Shouta exchange a look. This was going to be harder than they thought, and while some answers could be found if they searched long enough, it'd be far easier if they could just get the answers from Izuku. How about this? For every question you answer, we'll answer one of yours. Hizashi says with a small smile. They would answer them either way, but if it made Izuku feel better that he was getting something in return, then they'd bargain away the answers. Izuku takes a second to think about the deal. Oh, okay, but I get to ask the next question since I already answered one. He declares. Shouta and Hizashi both nod their acceptance of this. It only takes a second to think of his first question. What do you want with me? Shouta is the one to respond. We want to take care of you. Izuku waits for more of an explanation, the concept of someone wanting to take care of him a foreign notion. He doesn't receive one. Now what's your full name? But you didn't answer my question. Izuku shrieks, frustration leaking into his voice. Everything has changed so rapidly and he doesn't get why. There's no need to scream. I did answer your question. If you'd like more clarification, then you can use your next question on it. Now what is your full name? Izuku scowls at the two adults sitting in front of him, but after a few seconds of quiet he spits out a quiet, Midoriya. Hizashi and Shouta beam when their question is answered. Thank you, darling. Hizashi coos, reaching forward to try and pet Izuku's hair, but it's batted away. What did you mean by take care of me? Izuku asks again. The two men smile sadly. Oh baby, we just want to take care of you. It's obvious that your blood family isn't treating you well. We want to feed you, and clothe you, and give you whatever you want in life and love you. Hizashi states like it's the most obvious thing in the world. Izuku still doesn't understand. But why? Shouta shrugs, and answers even though it could be considered another question. Because you remind us of ourselves when we were your age. So we decided to give you the life that you deserve. There's no ulterior motive or anything else. We just want to take care of you. Izuku takes a deep breath. Everything they are saying is a foreign concept to him, and he struggles to wrap his head around it. Even worse, Shouta doesn't give him time to digest it, immediately moving on to the next question. What happened the night I found you? Izuku gulps. He should have known that would be a question. Do I have to tell you? He asks softly. If you want any of your questions answered, then yes. Shouta states matter-of-factly. Tears welled up in Izuku's eyes, and as much as both adults want to comfort him, they need these answers. They had the rest of their lives to comfort their child. I was cornered at school. They don't like that I sometimes mutter, and I guess that I did it too much this time. So they each held me down and, Izuku shudders, tears pouring freely now. After they were done they all left, and they were Logan and I know why they hate me so much. He sobs. I couldn't go home, 'cause Mama would've just pulled on them or yelled and hit me, so I just ran, and then I woke up here. Shouta barely holds back a snarl. If it was at the school, then more than likely it was those FING brats. Or worse, a teacher. And what he'd said about his mama made it obvious their assumptions were correct. Yes, Shouta and Hizashi tried not to hurt children in their line of work, shutting down trafficking rings, and making sure kids were at schools before blowing up apartment complexes, but this changed things. Who are they, Izuku? Shouta presses. Izuku shakes his head, and tries to wipe away the still flowing tears. It's my turn. Shouta feels his eye twitch, but nods. He'd promised answers in return, he wasn't about to change his mind. Okay, ask away, kiddo. Izuku hiccups, once. Twice. Takes a breath, then continues. Where am I? Our base. Hizashi mumbles. We would have taken you home, but the doctor didn't have the equipment to operate in our home, so here it was. Why did they have a base? Shouta had nearly killed Kaken. There was no way they were heroes. Now who were they? Shouta asks again. Izuku shrugs. Everyone. Nobody in school likes me. Not the teacher, the students. Not even the janitors. I just try to be quiet, but sometimes I slip up and they hate that. They've never done that before though. Specifically it was Kaken and Mr. Meadow. Izuku sobs. Shouta takes one look at the heart-wrenching sadness on Izuku's face, and knows that they're going to destroy that school. Why do you have a base? Izuku asks quietly, tears still dripping down his face. We're villains. There's no fanfare, nothing to lessen the shock. Izuku blinks once, then twice as the words sink in. Villains? No, Izuku hasn't had the best life, he'll admit it. But he doesn't think it's bad enough to warrant villains taking pity on him and kidnapping him. He knows that adults are generally bad, even heroes, that he can't trust anyone. But villains? Was his life a joke? We just have one more question, darling. Has anyone in your life ever shown you even a little decency? Hizashi asks, reaching up to run his fingers through Izuku's curls, and the boy is too shell-shocked to stop him. When his mind finally stops whirling with shock, and Izuku can think again, he answers the question. Besides the villains in front of him, the ones who were supposed to be mean to him, no. No one had ever cared for the poor quirkless child. Shouta and Hizashi let the boy work through the big emotions he's obviously feeling. With his full name and a general idea of who they need to kill, they can research the rest on their own, no need to cause any more stress for the boy. When Izuku finally recovers enough to ask more questions, they allow him to take his fill, not asking for anything in return, just giving the answers freely. Their villain names, which sends the boy into another round of shock, since he'd actually heard of them. What they were going to do with him in the future. Raise him as their child, whether or not they'd murdered people. They don't give all of the graphic details, of course, but they don't lie either. And at the end of the questioning, when Izuku is exhausted and overwhelmed, they simply kiss him goodnight and tuck him in. We'll give you some time to come to terms with things, darling. We'll see you in the morning. Hizashi croons at the shaking boy. And Shouta pets his hair for a second, before walking away. Call out for us if you need anything. We love you. He'd said as they left Izuku to ruminate on his findings. Villains wanted to be his parents, and while they treated him better than everyone else so far, they were adults. More than that, they were the infamous villains Shade and Echo. He needed to get away as soon as possible, before they killed him. Izuku wasn't sure why he wanted to live, but he did. How did his life always end up like this? Shouta and Hizashi, on the other hand, are ecstatic. Their child had given them enough answers that they could kill everyone who ever hurt him, and then after they were done bringing hell down on those assholes, they could take their baby shopping and spoil them. This was the start of their life as parents, and they couldn't be more excited. Izuku slept like a rock the entire night, exhausted after crying so much yesterday. Not to mention the emotionally draining information he'd received last night. It almost felt like a fever dream, but looking around was enough to dispel that thought. After all, no normal hospital would take him, which means it couldn't have been a fever dream. What strikes him as odd, though, is the quiet. While in his coma, there had always been noise, voices, beeping, and yet everything is completely silent now. A glance at his body shows that he no longer has any machinery hooked up to him either. How long had he been sleeping? He shakes his head. It doesn't matter. This was the perfect opportunity to escape. He couldn't hear anyone. There was no machinery hooked up to him. It was perfect. Izuku slips out of the bed, standing on wobbly feet. There's a low ache in his bones, but if he's being honest, he feels better than he has in a very long time. Typically, his entire body is bruised, his hands shaking in pain, and various burns cover his skin. Or he has a broken bone. It was nice to not be in excruciating pain for once. He takes a cautious step forward, crying out when his ankle gives out and he falls to the ground, scraping his knees against the cool concrete. "Ow!" he murmurs, before pulling himself up again. After a few more falls, he makes it to the door, legs still shaky, but at least he's upright. There's a chair next to the door, and in it sits a bag. Izuku is a little suspicious of it, but if it holds clothes, he'd much rather wear those, and not this hospital gown for his escape. Luckily, his assumptions are correct. He doesn't bother to try and make it to the bathroom. It would just take energy he doesn't have, and he needs to conserve the little he does have. After a few minutes, he's dressed. There were overalls inside, a darkish brown, and a button-up shirt, with colorful dinos stitched into it, along with a cute straw hat, and it all looks brand new. He can't remember the first time he'd gotten new clothes or worn overalls, but he likes it a lot. Looking down at himself, he felt like he finally looked like a kid, dressed in cute clothes to go and play at the park with friends. Izuku definitely didn't spend precious time admiring the fabric. He absolutely did not. Reluctantly, he stops admiring the clothes and peeks outside the door. Wherever their base is, it's big. His room opens out into a hallway that seems to dwarf him in height. It felt like he could fit 1,000 Izukus in the hall and still not fill it up. Since the coast is clear, Izuku steps out of the room carefully. When no alarms go off, and nothing comes flying, he relaxes. Maybe they thought he was still too weak to walk. Or maybe, a little voice in his chest whispers, they trusted you not to run. There's a lot of doors in the hallway, and the hallway seems to stretch forever in his kid mind. He's not sure how to get out, hadn't even seen them come in, so he needs to be thorough and check every single room. It doesn't seem smart to go to the left, he feels like that would just lead him deeper into the base. Mind made up, Izuku heads right, stopping before the first door. Some have nothing in them, others have what looks like more medical equipment, and one is even an office. Izuku feels like these should be locked. After wandering for what seems forever, and checking a million doors, Izuku finds a stairway. And well, up seems the only option, just like right had seemed like the best direction. So Izuku starts walking up the stairs. He can feel his energy flagging, which isn't a good sign at all. He won't make it out if he's too tired, and who knows when he'll get another opportunity like this. Eventually he makes it up the stairs, and opens the heavy door with a grunt. To his horror, there's just another hallway, though this one is smaller, with just as many doors. But with no way to go except forward, Izuku walks ahead, checking rooms. One look inside the first door though has him tensing. It's a room. Like one with a bed and posters and stuff. Which means the others probably are too. If someone is in one, that would spell the end. And if Shouta and Hizashi are villains, that means the people in these rooms would be villains too, and maybe they don't know about him and then they might eat him. Tears are quickly forming in the greenette's eyes. He just wants to leave and now he might get caught. He doesn't have the energy to go back down and try and search for another way, and what if there isn't another way? What if he's stuck and he's gonna get cooked alive and it'll be all his fault for not staying in the room he'd woken up in? Izuku is broken out of his spiraling thoughts by the sound of a door opening. He has to hide. But it's too late, as a tall blue-haired person steps out humming. Izuku tries to muffle his breath, but it doesn't work. He must have squeaked or something because the man whirls around, a bow staff appearing out of nowhere. He relaxes when he sees Izuku though, an easy smile gracing his face. The guy has a long scar going across his entire face, and there's a teeny tiny band-aid across his nose, as if it's supposed to hide it maybe? It doesn't work, and Izuku notices his hair looks like clouds, and Izuku can't breathe. Is this the guy's quirk? Hey little guy, you're Sho and Zashi's kid right? What are you doing up? I was actually just about to come see you. Sho and Hizashi had some errands to run with everyone. He speaks quietly as he inches toward Izuku, and that's when Izuku realizes that him not breathing isn't a quirk, he's having a panic attack. He's had them lots of times before, which makes this better, because he knows how to handle it, but there's a villain in front of him. Izuku begins to spiral deeper, barely feeling the hands that catch him before he falls to the ground, but then there's a hand on his chest and a voice telling him to breathe with him, and Izuku knows how to follow directions, so he does, and after a while, the black is starting to recede and Izuku can feel the fuzz leaving his head and he can actually breathe, which is good. So Izuku focuses on what the voice is saying, trying not to fall back into the panic attack. I didn't mean to startle you, buddy, I'm real sorry about that. But you're okay, we're gonna get through this, don't you worry. Izuku sniffles and nods. Thanks. He says quietly, wiggling softly in an attempt to get out of the man's arms. It doesn't work. It sends another spike of panic through his body, but the person holding him quickly combats it, smiling down at Izuku and speaking quickly. I'm Oboro, but you can call me Uncle Oboro, okay? And I'll let you down quick, I just want to make sure you're okay first. Do you still feel like you're gonna panic or fall down? Izuku shakes his head, squirming softly. The man named Oboro, Izuku guesses nods and lets him down, though when Izuku tries to stand he's pushed to the ground gently. Let's just take it easy, alright? You were in a coma not a day ago, and you just had a panic attack. Sho and Hizashi will kill me if something happens to you on my watch, so why don't you stay sitting for a moment? Izuku wants to argue, but even he doesn't think he'll be able to stand upright for long, and he's starting to feel a bit dizzy. K. Now, why are you out of bed, buddy? You really shouldn't be, he trails off slowly. Izuku gulps. This man is definitely a villain, which means he can't admit he was trying to escape. But what if he can tell he's lying? Will the man eat him? Izuku can't help what he blurts out next. Are you gonna eat me? He cries, clapping a hand to his mouth once he realizes what he says. Oboro blinks, once, twice, before bursting into laughter. After a few minutes the laughter dies down, and the man wipes a tear out of his eye, before ruffling Izuku's matted curls. Oh kiddo no. I promise, there are no villains here that have a taste for flesh. Well, at least not in a way you would be worried about. Izuku isn't sure what the last part means, but his mind eases just a little once he hears no one's gonna eat him. He's not sure what all villains would be willing to do after all. Now, can you tell me what you were doing out of bed? Izuku gulps, but quickly comes up with an excuse. I was hungry, and I couldn't hear anybody, so I was gonna see if I could find the kitchen. Izuku whispers. Oboro relaxes even more, and ruffles Izuku's hair once more. I'm sorry buddy. You shouldn't have had to get up because you were hungry. Most of our group went out to do some errands, and the doctor was called away. He deemed you okay to take off the foreign stuff, and Hizashi and Sho thought they'd be back before you woke up. I was left behind just in case you did wake up. And like I said before, I was just about to come check on you. I'm surprised you didn't get lost in this big old place. Izuku smiles weakly, mind whirling. He has lots of experience running from bullies, and this would be the best time to run, especially because everyone else was out of the base thing. He just needed to get close to the door and he'd be home free. Well, let's get you back to that bed of yours, and I'll go fetch you some food. How does that sound? Oboro reaches for Izuku, who squeaks and slaps the hands away. I've been in that bed for so long, can I come with you? Izuku tries to make himself look as pitiful as possible. Please. It seems to work, Oboro softening ever so slightly, and studying Izuku with careful eyes. After a few moments of careful consideration, he breaks out into another smile and nods jovially. Well, the doc did say you were able to move around if you so like, as long as you keep it easy. And you weren't trying to run away, I mean you don't even have shoes on. So I suppose I can take you to ground level, and we can eat and wait for everyone there. Does that sound okay? Izuku nods eagerly. It sounds perfect. Yes please. Thank you. Oboro holds up a finger. On one condition. What is it? You're still pretty weak, and there's a bunch of stairs to get to the ground level, so I have to carry you. He bargains. Izuku winces, the idea of being cradled to a villain not very appealing. Oboro must see his apprehension, because he smiles and says, I don't even have to touch you. How? Izuku asks. Touching tends to be a part of being carried. Oboro smiles mischievously, and before Izuku can move he's swept up on something big and fluffy. Izuku shrieks, grabbing onto it tremulously. Further inspection, it seems to be some kind of cloud? Izuku looks back at Oboro's hair. At least it makes sense. I have the ability to create clouds and control the density and stuff. So I don't have to touch you, and you can just enjoy the ride, buddy. How does that sound? Izuku gulps but eventually nods. Okay. Oboro's quirk sounds familiar, and he tries to think of where he's heard of it before. Izuku had always liked heroes, even if they never helped him, so he never paid much attention to the villains. He knew who Shade and Echo were, because everyone knew who they were. But what villain had a cloud ability? It takes a few moments, but finally Izuku realizes it's not familiar because he knows the villain, but because he knows the hero. Are you the hero, Loud Cloud? Izuku squawks. Oboro laughs and nods. Good eye, buddy. I sure am. Oboro sends a smirk back at the flabbergasted child. But you're in a villain base? Indeed. I'm also a villain. Oboro explains. Have you ever heard of the villain Poltergeist? The name sounds vaguely familiar, but not really. Seeing the confusion on Izuku's face, he continues. I use my cloud abilities to shroud myself in mists and roll them along the ground. It's quite creepy in the dark, I have to say. And I murder heroes who I think are fakes, who I know have hurt others. Oboro explains softly. Izuku shakes his head softly. But you're a hero. Izuku says softly, tears filling his eyes. You're supposed to stop murderers and stuff. Oboro sighs, and turns back around with a guilty expression. I didn't mean to upset you, buddy. Let's just not talk about it right now, okay? I have my reasons for doing what I do. Maybe after you're a little more settled and I'll tell you why, but right now it's just upsetting you, okay? Izuku scowls and looks away. This was wrong, even more wrong than Echo and Shade wanting to adopt him. The rest of the way to the ground floor is silent, besides loud cloud humming beside him. After 3 more flights of stairs, he opens another door that leads out into a main room filled with windows that lets lots of sunshine in. Oboro leads the cloud over to the couch and sets Izuku down softly. Izuku admits he's glad Oboro carried him up the stairs. If he'd walked, Izuku doesn't think he'd have any energy left to actually escape. Do you have any preference for food? Typically Izuku would say no, but he wants to keep Oboro in the kitchen for as long as possible. Kei Katsudon? Oboro's face pinches with suspicion, but Izuku is quick to explain. I know it takes longer, and I am hungry, but it's my favorite, and it's been years since I've had it. That causes the suspicion to fade away, and instead a look of soft pity to settle on his features instead. Of course, kiddo. Why don't I make you a quick snack to tide you over first, and then I'll make the katsudon. Izuku nods eagerly and settles more into the couch to make it seem like he's not going to move. Oboro leaves through a door to the left, and comes back within 5 minutes, holding a plate of small sandwiches. Upon further inspection, Izuku notices that they're cut into dinosaur shapes. It startles Izuku a little bit and he looks down to trace the colorful dinos in his shirt. He hasn't had people make him food since he was 5, let alone take the time to cut it into fun shapes for him. It takes everything in him to remind himself that these are villains, and just because they're being nice, doesn't mean they're gonna continue to be. Once he's gotten himself under control, he sits for about 30 minutes, nibbling on the sandwiches, under Oboro's watchful eye. But after it seems like Izuku isn't going to move, Oboro stops coming to check on him every 3 minutes, and stays in the kitchen. Izuku can hear him humming an unfamiliar song. After 15 minutes without being bothered, Izuku slips off the couch, wincing when he makes a thumping sound when he hits the floor. He expects Oboro to come running, but it seems luck is on Izuku's side today, the humming not even faltering. He doesn't have time to figure out which door is the front door, especially if it's locked, so instead Izuku sidles up to one of the windows, testing to see if it's locked. To his delight it's not, and Izuku is able to slide the window up carefully. With one more look at the kitchen, Izuku scrambles up and out, barely taking the time to shut it again before bolting. The break and food had given him a bit more energy, which works in his favor as he darts across the lawn and out the gate. He's not sure if Oboro heard him or is in pursuit, and he's not about to stick around to find out. The area is vaguely familiar to Izuku, especially once he passes the drag store he met both Shouta and Hizashi at. At that point he knows exactly where to go, though he's not sure where he should go. His mama would kill him and so would the school, after going missing for so long. Not that he'd feel particularly safe at either place. Where can he go? Maybe he should just regroup at the school? I mean, he doesn't have to go in, or he could go to the apartment. Mama would be either passed out drunk or at work. After a moment of hesitation, he chooses the apartment. He can gather his meager things, and as much as he hates thinking about it, steal money from Mama. Then he can make an excuse on the bus and go to another city. There's nothing waiting for him here after all. Decision made, Izuku starts the familiar trek home, and knowing he won't be able to go in through the front locked door, scampers up the fire escape. He always made sure to unlock the bathroom window, for particularly bad days at school, and his mama hadn't realized yet, so he doubts she realized it was unlocked in the week he was gone. Sure enough, it's open and Izuku makes it inside the apartment easily. The next part isn't so easy. When he eases the bathroom door open, he can hear his mama snoring in the living room, which means he has to sneak past her into his room. Thus begins a 20-minute crawl across the space they used to happily share before his quirk diagnosis. Just a few miles away, Izuku is unaware of the panic Oboro is currently in as he tears apart the base in hopes that the child just wandered off. He really doesn't want to call Sho and Zashi and be the one to tell them he was the one who lost their child. Once Izuku makes it across the floor and into his room, which is destroyed, he packs the few clothes that still fit him and the stuffed teddy bear that he's had since he was 3 and is basically falling apart from wear and tear. It's his prized possession. He also packs all of his medical supplies, in case someone finds out he's quirkless and decides to use him as quirk practice. Izuku stands back and looks at the meager belongings. His entire life doesn't even fill a backpack. 1 shirt, 2 pairs of pants, a pair of 2 tight socks, 2 pairs of underwear and 1 thin hoodie. A bear and some medical supplies. Just to fill the empty space in his backpack, he adds his threadbare blanket. With that, it's about halfway filled up. It's the best he'll be able to do. Tearing his eyes away from the pitiful sight, he picks the light bag up and throws it over his shoulder to crawl back to the bathroom. This time he stops by his mama's purse and raids it of any money in there. There's a little over 8,000 yen in her purse, which could last him a couple months if he's careful and doesn't mind sleeping outside, which he doesn't. He's had to do it several times already as it is. Won't be much different to live outside. The trek to the bus stop is quiet. Izuku on edge the entire time, scared Loud Cloud would pop out of nowhere and take him away. After all, Izuku is the only one who knows of his secret identity as a villain. Except for other villains, but they won't help him. But his worries are for naught, and Izuku makes it with no troubles. It's a little awkward when he's asked why he isn't in school by the bus driver with a suspicious stare, but Izuku deflects it by saying he's going to stay with his dad while heavily implying his mama is dead. It quickly ends all questioning, and instead the adults in the bus level him with pitying stares. Izuku is uncomfortable with all of the attention, knowing if they knew his quirk status, the stares would easily turn into sharp words about him wasting a seat on the bus and angry glares. 5 minutes after he arrives, the bus takes off, and Izuku finally relaxes. There's no way for Shouta and Hizashi to find him now. Oboro didn't know where he went, and he sure as heck didn't know that he got on a bus to Tokyo. They'd surely spend weeks scouring the city before thinking about the buses, and by that time, it'd be far too late. He'd be gone, never to be seen again, a new beginning in another city. Maybe he should lie about his quirk status to people. As long as they didn't have his identification number, they couldn't look it up and prove him wrong. Something hard to disprove, like him glowing when presented with bioluminescent algae under a black light. A seemingly useless quirk was better than none. 30 minutes into the ride, Izuku is thrown from his thoughts when the bus screeches to a halt. The adults all start murmuring, the woman next to him standing up and peering through the windshield, trying to see what caused them to stop so abruptly. "Oh, call the heroes." A man wails terrified. Izuku shoots them a worried look. What was happening? It's Shade and Echo. Izuku freezes. Nanananananano. How did they find him? As soon as someone identifies the villains, mass hysteria breaks out, all of them running for the back door. Izuku himself burrows under the seat in terror. They found him, he's gonna die. Izuku, where are you? A voice croons, heavy footsteps sounding all the more threatening as they enter the bus. Izuku trembles violently from his hiding spot as the footsteps get closer. Did the tracker lie? Another voice murmurs. Shouta. Course not. Jiren knows the consequences if he gives us faulty equipment. Hizashi snaps. Izuku is hiding. I wish he would come out though. Izuku shivers and presses further along the wall. With no response, Hizashi and Shouta begin tearing the bus apart. The other passengers had long run away, Shouta and Hizashi not even bothering to try and stop them. Izuku's tracker hadn't moved after all. It's only a matter of time before heavy boots stop in front of Izuku's seat, and a face appears in front of him. After a second, a huge grin breaks out on Hizashi's face. Found you. He croons softly, reaching forward. Izuku shrieks and kicks at the man's hands. It doesn't do him much good, Hizashi just grabbing his foot and forcibly dragging him out. No. Go away, go away, go away. Izuku screams, hitting the hands grabbing at him. It's too late, already in Hizashi's grasp, and before he knows it he's held out, feet dangling off of the ground as he's lifted up and inspected. Izuku glances between them in terror as he struggles weakly. But lifted in the air, he's got no momentum, and although Hizashi is being careful, his ribs are twinging in pain. Both of them are in their villain costumes, which is even more terrifying. He's never seen them in those before, and they're designed specifically with terror in mind. Shouta's face is completely covered up with a leering white mask, and Hizashi has black face paint on, covering up the majority of his face as well, leaving his toxic green eyes to stand out even more. Braids pull the hair out of his face, before being dragged back to the back of his head to spill out in a half-up, half-down do. He wears a long black coat, spread open, metal plating on his shoulders. A low-cut red shirt covers his chest, fabric criss-crossing across the uncovered skin. There are straps everywhere, liberally decorated with knives, and vials of fluids Izuku doesn't want to know about. He's also sure there's more underneath the coat. The errands they were running had obviously been something villainous. Izuku is broken out of his thoughts when he's given to Shouta, and they start walking without a word, apparently done with their inspection. Izuku struggles weakly, only stopping when Shouta's grip tightens. Enough. We'll talk when we get home. Don't dig yourself a deeper hole by trying to run away again. Izuku almost keeps struggling just to spite him, but there's no point. They mentioned a tracker, and it wasn't like he knew how to get rid of it, so they just keep finding him until he got rid of it anyways. So Izuku relaxes with a sob, tears finally pouring out as he wails into the Shouta's shoulder. He has a very distinct feeling that this was his first and only chance to run away. And he'd failed, which meant he was at the mercy of the villains. What would they do to him? Starve him or beat him? What if they locked him in a tower like that old-timey princess? What if they stuck him over an acid-filled vat and fed him to electric eels? What if they experiment on him? For the second time that day, he works himself up into a panic attack, breaths shortening, as black fills in the edges of his eyesight. He's unaware of the worried glances Hizashi and Shouta are sending him, too worked up to focus on anything except his tight breath as he tries to breathe. When purple mist begins to float around him, Izuku thinks he's finally lost it for real. He's never hallucinated in a panic attack before, but there's a first time for everything. Eyes giving in as exhaustion crashes over him. Before he can freak out anymore, sleep pulls him under, breath easing as his mind relaxes. Hizashi caps the vial once Izuku is asleep. They can't afford to try and comfort him when they're in the open in their villain costumes. The best option was to put him under, so he didn't hurt himself. He does take a moment to cart a hand through his son's matted curls. It was obvious that their kiddo had an exhausting day, and it wasn't even dinner time. Hopefully the rest of the day would go smoother. Let's take him home, Zashi. Shouta says quietly. Izuku struggles to keep his burning eyes open. It had been a good 3 minutes since he'd blinked. He'd woken up to Shouta, or rather Shade, by his side, in the same makeshift hospital room he'd woken up in the first time. Shouta had caught his eye, and a silent staring contest had started. He's so in the zone, trying to keep his eyes open, that he doesn't hear the door open. Shouta doesn't flinch either, and his eyes don't waver once, which is total bullcrap by the way. He doesn't know why Shouta is so good at staring contests, but it was really irking. Really, Shou? Stop being so immature and look away. I know it hurts your ego to lose a staring contest, but I think you can manage today. Shouta sighs and looks away, but he doesn't lose. Hizashi's voice popping up out of nowhere had made Izuku jolt back to reality, and his eyes had been more than happy to slip close. How are you feeling, sweetie? Nem's quirk sometimes gives people headaches when they wake up. Izuku flinches away from the hands reaching for his head. Hizashi pauses, and to Izuku's surprise doesn't push it, letting his arms fall back to his sides, and instead giving Izuku a fond smile. It's a little unnerving if Izuku's being honest. He just tried to run away, but they weren't acting mad. When Izuku ran away from Kaken, there was always screaming and burning and pain. And they were villains, some of the most dangerous around here. Their reaction should be even worse than Kaken's, not smiles and quiet. He's quick to voice his confusion, anxiety, and disbelief leaking into his tone. Aren't you going to hurt me? Hizashi reels back as if he's been hit, and while Shouta's reaction is less dramatic, there's still a tightening in his mouth as he shifts forward. Kid. Shouta pauses, makes sure Izuku is listening, eyes trained on his own before he continues. We will do our best to never hurt you, and we definitely will never physically hurt you. We're human, So sometimes we might hurt your feelings or make mistakes, but we'll always do our best to correct those mistakes, okay? Izuku blinks slowly. Those words, promises of no pain, are so foreign to him, it almost sounds like a different language. What? But I ran away. Kaken always hurts me when I run away, why wouldn't you? Hizashi's soft smile turns a little sharper. Oh baby. Kaken's reaction is definitely not what you should measure how people would react to your mess-ups. Besides, you almost certainly had a reason to run away, I'm sure, in those instances. Tears of frustration build up in his eyes. Everything has changed, he's been kidnapped by villains, but they're being nicer than everyone in his life, and he doesn't understand. He doesn't realize he's scratching the skin on his arms until larger, more careful hands cover his and pry them off, instead lacing them together. Shouta is speaking, he's the one holding his hands, he thinks in the back of his head, the thought dim. He struggles to focus on the words. This isn't the first time this has happened, but he hates it, hates how everything fades until he doesn't even know his own body anymore. He knows it's a panic attack, but he doesn't understand why he has to be the one who has them, or even what exactly a panic attack is. He'd heard a teacher say it, and it sounded like what he had. It's okay. I know you're frustrated, and things don't make much sense, Izuku. I don't fault you for feeling overwhelmed, but you can't hurt yourself, okay? I can teach you some non-harmful ways to ground yourself later, but for now just grip my hands as hard as you want, okay? Izuku latches onto the word grip, and his hands tighten around Shouta's, the villain showing no discomfort, even as Izuku's grip becomes vice-like, fingers turning white from pressure. Shouta continues to speak to him, the words becoming clearer, the longer hands run through his hair, and the longer he holds on, the longer he tries to focus on the words. Panic attacks can be scary, I know, but you're doing so well, Izuku. Just keep holding on, keep listening. Just breathe with me, alright? Let's take a deep breath in, now exhale. Izuku does as requested, noticing how the knot in his chest loosens the longer he breathes, so he takes another one and another, until he can finally think again, and he sinks into the warmth emanating from behind. It doesn't register that it's a person, until the hands in his hair shifts, instead cradling his back carefully. It's been so long since someone has touched him willingly in a way that didn't cause pain that it makes his breath hitch again. It's okay, sweetie, you're okay? Take your time. Izuku doesn't know how long they sit there, Shouta crouched in front of him, hands still in his, perfectly happy to stay in that position until Izuku is okay, and Hizashi cradling him from behind, hands smoothing down his mop of curls, scratching his scalp lightly as he hums. It's nice. Once Izuku is breathing softly, eyes lidded in contentment, Shouta finally speaks again, thumb rubbing circles on Izuku's wrist comfortingly. Do you feel better now? Izuku hums softly, not wanting to speak and break the rare peace emanating from his mind, or come back to reality. The reality of being kidnapped by villains that are nice and have started calling themselves his parents. Well, it looks like you're feeling pretty content there, buddy. I know panic attacks can be pretty scary. I don't want you to feel pressured to talk either, okay? I'm gonna say some stuff, but I'm not going to go into depth, since I don't want you to have another panic attack. Izuku sighs and snuggles into the warmth even more. What's a panic attack? Izuku slurs. What's a panic attack? Shouta asks, wanting to clarify what Izuku said. Izuku nods sleepily. Well, people who have gone through a lot of trauma or have really bad anxiety can have them. It happens when they get scared or overwhelmed. Your brain starts going fuzzy, and it's hard to focus or breathe. Sometimes they start hurting themselves, and they can make you really tired. Izuku smiles just a little, barely an uptick of his mouth, but it's nice to have a name to the feeling. Why? Shouta hums thoughtfully. Why what? Why do they hurt themselves? Or is it something else? Why me? Izuku can't see it with his eyes closed, but both of the villains' faces clench at his words. Well, sweetie, you've gone through some stuff that I think would give anyone panic attacks. But it's not something to be ashamed of, baby. We'll help you through those big feelings. And panic attacks aren't forever. Once you've been given enough time to heal, and given the tools to heal, you'll start moving forward. Maybe not right away, and you might even take some steps back in terms of progress, but we'll be there every step of the way. Hizashi soothes. He runs another hand through Izuku's hair when Izuku's face scrunches up. He doesn't want to upset him right now. Be normal. Hizashi wants to murder everyone who ever hurt this precious, precious child. You're already normal, kiddo. It may be a different normal from everyone else, but it's still normal. And when I said panic attacks aren't forever, that came out wrong. Izuku whimpers at the thought of always being out of control of his body. Hizashi is quick to soothe him. What I meant to say was that things get better with time. One day you're going to look back at how you were right now and you'll see how far you've grown. That's all you need to worry about, baby, is that things will get better. Just focus on becoming happy, focus on growing into the best possible person you can be. No matter what kind of person that is. Most people would laugh to hear him talk about becoming the best version of yourself when he's easily murdered hundreds of people, but he can't help it. He's quite happy with how he is. And Izuku's normal may not look like everyone else's normal with Hizashi and Shouta raising him, and maybe his happiness won't either, but it'll be Izuku's normal and happy. Hizashi shares a warm look with his husband, as Izuku's breath evens out. They'll just have to talk to him later. Even though it feels like he's spent most of his time sleeping, Izuku is injured. They'll have plenty of time to bond and talk about this stuff later. For now, they need to have a talk with Oboro. Hizashi presses a kiss to Izuku's head as Shouta stands and disentangles his hands from their kids. You were so good with him, Sho. Hizashi squeals as they exit and lock the door behind them this time. Just a little precaution in case Izuku wakes up again while they're gone. They aren't mad about what happened, expected it even, but they'd been expecting it far later down the line. And they weren't mad at Izuku for trying, they were mad at Oboro for allowing their kid the chance to run. I mean, Izuku was still healing from his injuries, he didn't need to be running around town. They hadn't even been planning on leaving his side yet, but something had come up that was far too good to pass up. Their sweet baby school had been closed down for maintenance repairs, leaving it free for Hizashi and Shouta to burn down. They had no qualms about burning it down with all the kids in it after hearing how absolutely nobody was kind to their child, but they wanted to hear their screams in person, so they'd be paying at the very least every child and teacher that had ever interacted or been in the same class as Izuku a personal visit. Didn't mean they couldn't enjoy watching the building their child was abused in for years burn down. So they'd left, expecting Oboro to do as they asked and not leave Izuku's side in case he woke up. Instead, the buffoon had left Izuku unattended and allowed their baby to escape. It makes Hizashi shudder to imagine if Izuku hadn't put on the tracker-infested clothes before running away. It would have taken them weeks to find Izuku, and in his weak state, their child could have been dead. Too weak to fend for himself in the big city, he barely knew how to pickpocket. And weakened by his injuries, he could have gotten sick or Shouda's hand on his arm stops Hizashi from spiraling into thoughts of what if? They're right outside of the common room where Oboro was told to wait for them. Once Hizashi manages to collect his thoughts and smooth out his expression, they enter faces cold. Oboro looks like a wreck, wringing his hands, and sweat on his forehead. He stumbles to his feet at the sight of them, bowing low, face almost scraping the ground. Zashi, I am so sorry. I caught him in the living quarters, and he said that he was hungry, and so I thought there wasn't any harm in bringing him to the commons so I could make him a snack, and I kept checking in like every 30 seconds, and he wasn't moving, so I thought he was really being good. So I forgot to check for like 5 minutes and then he was gone, and I am so Shouda's lashes out, fist cracking against Oboro's face. Oboro collapses to the ground, nose already swelling, blood leaking from his lip. I deserve that. I think you've forgotten who we are, Oboro. Shouta whispers darkly, crouching down and grabbing the wispy hair in his fist. We're feared enough that the underground refuses to even speak our name. Heroes who cross us know that it will spell the end of them. There has never been a person who escaped our wrath. We are not known for our mercy. Hizashi grins, the one that makes people PSS his pants, his head tilted just right to make his canines look huge and ready to tear someone's throat out. And because of your mistake, Izuku almost got away. Think of what could have happened to him, in the big city all alone, injured, cold and hungry? Think of all the possibilities. I sure have. And just the possibility of harm coming to our child makes me want to rip your throat out. Hizashi hisses, yanking a knife out of his waistband and pressing it to Oboro's throat. Oboro tries not to swallow, knowing blood will draw if his skin so much as glances off of the razor-sharp blade. He really didn't want a gutted throat. I'm sorry you guys. I don't have an excuse. Shouta and Hizashi glance at each other and nod. Shouta releases Oboro's hair, and Hizashi eases away, but doesn't put the blade away. If Izuku had managed to escape, you would be dead right now. But since we watched the security footage and you didn't lie to us, you'll be spared this once. Shouta says. Hizashi nods, but his smile still looks far too sharp for Oboro's taste. But that doesn't mean you're getting off scot-free. Fast as a whip, Hizashi's knife comes slashing forward, ripping the flesh of Oboro's face open. Oboro screams in pain as the knife slices into his eye and carves a line down his face. Hizashi doesn't stop until Oboro has passed out, limp on the ground, 3 lines carved into his once perfect skin. Blood drips from Hizashi's knife onto the ground as he smiles ferally. The Cloud Hero wouldn't be able to see out of one eye after this, but Hizashi had been kind enough to leave the other untouched. Did it feel good, my love? Hizashi nods, staring at his blood-stained hands. It never failed to excite him, seeing other people's blood on his hands. And now Oboro would know better than to leave Izuku unsupervised at such a delicate time in the child's life. His entire life had been uprooted, and soon 5 years of brainwashing would have to be undone for the boy. Being able to run away was the last thing they needed. Go get cleaned up, I'll tell Nightshade to bring him to the doctor. And then we can get ready to bring Izuku home. Hizashi nods once more and scampers off, still staring at his hands with an expression of utter delight. He always got like this after a particularly satisfying attack. Hopefully the bloodlust will have receded by the time they are ready to take Izuku home. While Hizashi cleans himself up, he calls Nightshade. The rest of the team had been warned to stay in their rooms until the punishment was over. Well, if it isn't my dark and mysterious lover. Nightshade purrs through the phone. Shouta rolls his eyes. Oboro needs medical attention. Take him to the hospital ward underneath Izuku's and have the doctor take care of it. He ends the call before she can make an innuendo about how she'd be happy to take him to bed. He could only deal with Nightshade in very small doses. It's not too long after that she struts in. Villain name Nightshade, civilian name Namuri Kiyama. She's dressed in her villain costume, not that it's much of one. She was one of the most risque villains out there. She could afford to not wear protective armor, since anyone who got close enough met the business end of her scythe, or went down to her mist. She'd undergone a quirk change a long time ago, now able to change her sleeping gas into a poisonous mist at will. She'd adopted the name Nightshade after the deadly purple flower. And as someone who needs her skin bare to use her quirk, she truly took advantage of that. Her top was simply a HRS that lifted her assets and cut flattering lines into her body. Her bottoms might well have been another strap from the HRS, with how little it covered. She loved watching the heroes try to remain respectful while also cop a peek. Most heroes fell to her charms before her gas. It was hilarious. Upon seeing Oboro's condition, she cuts off the innuendo she was about to say and instead gets to work lifting him up and dragging him out of the room, all while in stiletto heels. Once both of them are gone, Shouta returns back to the hospital room his kiddo is in, surprised to see Hizashi back already, and playing with their sleeping boy's hair. Are you ready to pack up? He'll be safer in our home than our base now that he doesn't need to be connected to machines. And we can introduce him to the team when we come in to get his bones readjusted. Hizashi nods reluctantly, before pulling himself away to help Shouta pull their stuff out of the cabinets. When Shouta glances over, he's surprised to see how normal his husband seems. Hizashi usually always becomes manic after things like this. Izuku really was good for Hizashi. While you were gone our baby snorted. It was so adorable. Or the manic energy was being redirected to gush over their son. Either way, if it made Shouda's life easier, he wasn't complaining. It was a beach to drag a bloodlust-filled Hizashi home after he just hurt or killed someone. Not that Shouta was any different, he just hit it better. They pack as Hizashi chatters his ear off quietly about everything their kid had done in their sleep while he was gone. They didn't have much in the room yet, but they'd been expecting to stay at least a few more days, so they had some outfit changes for all of them, and some stuff they'd brought to keep Izuku entertained. Shouta leaves out a nighttime outfit for Izuku, since it was nearly night and Izuku's outfit had gotten dirty running around the city. They'd need to change Izuku's bandages before they left too. So maybe they should make him shower here too? It doesn't take long to finish, Hizashi dragging the duffel bag out of the door. He'll be taking it to the car while Shouta gets Izuku ready. Shouta makes his way to Izuku, who's still passed out, to wake him up. He doesn't want to scare the kid, so he's far gentler than he would be with his lover. After a few moments of head scratches and gentle calls to the boy, Izuku's emerald eyes blink open. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Shouta murmurs, continuing to run his fingers through Izuku's hair. "I'm sorry for having to wake you up, but it's time to head home. Which means you need to get ready to go." "Okay." Shouta chooses to have him shower here, so they don't have to wake him once they get home, staying near in case Izuku needs him, but also trying to give the sleepy 9-year-old as much privacy as possible. He ends up having to help wash and condition his hair, but Izuku manages to wash his own body. Once Izuku is out of the shower, Shouta sits him on the counter, wrapped up tight in towels, as he gently dries the kid's hair. He doesn't want the kiddo to get a cold after all. Once Izuku's hair is no longer dripping wet, he wraps bandages gently around the kid's wounds and helps the kid into his sleep outfit, a cat onesie that Shouta had bought in a moment of weakness when they'd gone shopping online for clothes for the kid to tide him over until they could shop some more. The sight is ridiculously adorable, and Shouta may have snapped 1 or 10 pictures of the dozing kid. He doesn't bother to brush the kid's teeth, since the kid will be eating in the car. And he can go one night without brushing them. They'll make sure to just have him brush them extra well the next morning. With that done, he scoops the kid up and sets him on his hip. The day had really exhausted the kid, as he already is almost passed out. "Hey, don't sleep yet. You've barely eaten today, we need to get at the very least some jelly packs in you," Shouta chides. Izuku hums non-committally and nuzzles in closer. The walk to the surface is quick, Shouta strides eating up the distance. He raids the kitchen for a light snack to hold the kid till morning, and then heads out into the night, sending a sharp glare to Nightshade, who's sprawled out on the couch with everything hanging out. She's lucky his kid is asleep. She squeaks at the glare, and is quick to cover up to his pleasure. He won't be having his child's innocence being ruined so soon, thank you very much. 30 minutes after Hizashi had left the room, Shouta slides into their car, buckling Izuku into the back seat, a jelly packet hanging loosely from the sleeping child's mouth. "Ready to take Aizu home, Sho?" Hizashi crows, luckily not waking Izuku up. Shouta smiles softly and nods. He really was. 2 weeks later, Hizashi hums softly, hips swaying to the music he turned on as he cooks breakfast. His mood has been steadily rising over the last 2 weeks, and right now he feels like he's on an all-time high, dancing on clouds so to say. His loving partner is sleeping in the other room, exhausted after a night of fun activities, and his child is barely 20 feet away, also asleep in his room. Hizashi had checked on the little gremlin to find him passed out, and wrapped around the stuffed animal he'd taken to in the last few weeks. It's a sleepy-looking turtle that only serves to heighten his child's cuteness factor. It makes Hizashi want to just keep his kiddo locked up forever where nothing could ever hurt him again. Izuku has been adapting so well to his new life, with only a few hiccups, he can't help but feel like Izuku deserves a treat. Maybe they'll take him to the compound today? He needs to officially meet the gang after all, and it's where Izuku will be spending a majority of his time while his parents work on missions, or do boring paperwork. He'll need to be comfortable there. Mind made up to discuss it when Shouta wakes up, Hizashi refocuses on the task of frying bacon. Shouta loves an American breakfast, and Hizashi has a sneaking suspicion that Izuku does too, even if he won't admit it yet. Just as Hizashi finishes plating the food, he hears his bedroom door open, and his love shuffles out. He's quick to hand Sho the coffee he'd gotten ready in advance, accepting the kiss on his cheek as payment happily. "Aizu up yet?" Shouta mutters after draining half the cup. Hizashi shakes his head no. "Nope. I was about to go wake you guys up when you came in. By the way, how do you feel about taking Aizu to the compound today? Do you think he's settled in well enough?" Shouta takes another sip of coffee, the question slowly processing in his sleep-addled brain. I think that will be fine. He needs to get used to his new life as soon as possible, and the compound will be a huge part of that. Not to mention, we need the doctor to decide if it's time to re-break some of his bones and reset them. Shouta says slowly. Hizashi beams and kisses his lovely partner. Perfect. I'll go wake baby up, we'll eat, get ready, and maybe do a bit of bonding before we head over. How does that sound? Shouta hums in agreement, and Hizashi skips over to Izuku's room and slowly pushes the door open. He's delighted to see the small child already awake, turtle clutched to his chest as he watches Hizashi from his perch on the bed. Well, good morning, sleepyhead. Hizashi coos, crouching next to the bed and running a hand through Izuku's hair. Did you sleep well? Izuku nods softly and Hizashi sighs fondly. You should have come and kept me company once you woke up, baby. I would have loved some son time. Hizashi pretends not to see the scowl that twists onto his baby's face as soon as he mentions being his papa. Aizu will need to get used to it anyway. Okay. Izuku says, sitting up and slipping out of the bed, turtle clutched tight. Hizashi smiles brightly and ushers the boy out. There's no point in the kiddo getting dressed, when he'll probably get his sleep clothes dirty. Your daddy's already awake, so why don't you go sit with him, while I bring the food over? Hizashi offers, and Izuku shuffles over obediently. These last 2 weeks have been hard on the boy, but he's learned it's easier to just listen and do what they ask, since otherwise they get handsy. The stupid adults like to control everything he does. The first day he'd stayed at this apartment, they'd placed out clothes for him and he'd ignored them, which had turned into a chase across the apartment before he was inevitably caught and forced to change. Shouta smiles down at the sleepy 9-year-old and reaches down to pick him up and set him on the stool next to him. Sleep well. Izuku shrugs and clutches his turtle tighter. He knows he's about to be 10, and definitely too old to be sleeping with a stuffed animal, but it brought him comfort in this strange new situation. He doesn't think he could give the animal up anytime soon. Shouta scowls a bit at the non-answer. He and Hizashi are trying to get their bunny to speak a bit more, but he's being difficult about it. Words please, bunny. Izuku scowls. This time the scowl fully cements on Shouta's face. Bunny, that's not going to fly for much longer. If I ask a question, I'd like an answer, not just a K. Izuku huffs. I slept fine. He snaps. Hizashi brings and sets the food down in front of them with a smile. Slept fine, what baby? I think you're forgetting something there. Hizashi croons, chucking the boy under the chin, smile turning just a bit stern. That was something else they were trying to promote. The more their baby called them daddy and papa, the sooner he'd accept that Hizashi and Shouta were his new parents. Izuku stays stubbornly quiet. Shouta signs and leans over to whisper in the child's ear. It's okay, bunny. I can wait until you're ready to call me your daddy. Izuku shoves the older man away. Then you're gonna be waiting forever. The child snaps, before turning to stab at the bacon in front of him. Hizashi and Shouta share a look above his head, before turning to their own food. It won't do any good to send their kiddo into a tantrum this early in the morning, so they'd let it go for now. Breakfast is a quiet affair, Hizashi trying to start a conversation with their new child, only to be shut down several times with soft one-word answers. It's been like this for the past week, but it's at least better than last week, where their kiddo was screaming at them at all hours of the day. He's settling, even if he doesn't realize it yet. It wouldn't be long before Izuku would be telling them he loved them and calling them papa and daddy. By the time Hizashi and Shouta have finished their food, Izuku's barely taken 3 bites. Shouta frowns. Do you need us to feed you again? Shouta asks, eyebrows raised. Izuku scowls and shakes his head, stabbing a piece of bacon and taking a bite of it with a pointed look. No, I can do it. Izuku says mulishly. He'd felt like such a baby last week, when they'd take turns feeding him when he refused to eat. It wasn't his fault he wasn't used to this much food, and it made him feel sick to eat all this food. Izuku ignores the whisper in his chest that says if he told them about it, they'd probably understand more and work around it. He doesn't need them to accommodate him, he'll be leaving here soon anyways. His first attempt might have failed, And sure, he'd felt a little helpless and maybe might have given up for a bit, but he's been by himself for an entire year now. He doesn't need an adult to take care of him, which means he needs to get going soon. He just needs to wait for the perfect opportunity. Bunny. Izuku is out of his thoughts when a hand brushes through his hair. What? He snaps, ignoring the stern look he gets in return for his mulish tone. We just wanted to tell you about the agenda for today. This makes Izuku pause. They've never had an agenda before. After you finish breakfast, we'll get ready and then we'll be heading over to the compound. It's the place you woke up in after we took that stuff out of your mouth. We're gonna introduce you to the whole gang, and then the doc is gonna take a look at ya, okay? Izuku tenses up at the mention of the doctor. He still remembers the creepy vibes the doctor had given off, and the talk about having to re-break his bones. What? Do we have to? I mean, I think maybe we should put it off for a bit. Izuku says nervously. Hizashi smirks knowingly at Shouta and shakes his head. Apparently all children were afraid of doctors. No can do, Bunny. Finish your food, and we'll get an outfit for you to wear. Despite Izuku's best attempts to stall, they're out of the door an hour and a half later. Izuku tugs irritably at the raincoat they'd forced him into after checking the weather as he's led down the road to a car. The door is opened, and he's ushered into the back seat. He refuses to sit in the car seat in the middle, and instead sits next to it. It's in vain though, since 2 seconds after he plops down, Shouta sticks his head in and gives him the look. Izuku hates the look. It's the look that says he knows what he's doing is wrong, and if he doesn't fix it, he's not going to like the consequences. Still, he doesn't comply, and to his shame, he's quickly picked up and buckled into the dreaded car seat. Keep it on, Bunny, or Daddy will have to sit back here and make sure you keep it on. You're too small to sit without a car seat, and we're not going to risk your life just because you're embarrassed. Shouta mutters sternly. After weighing his options, he chooses to leave the seat alone. He'd rather have to sit in a booster seat than be subjected to Shouta or Hizashi fussing over him in the back and still be in the booster seat. The drive there is quick to Izuku's relief. Even with Shouta and Hizashi in the front seat, he'd been forced to deal with plenty of fussing, making sure the ride wasn't making him sick. They were such worry-warts, it made him sick. Once pulled up to the compound, he's quickly released from the car seat and set on his feet. Hizashi doesn't let go of his hand though, claiming he's too little to walk by himself. Izuku rolls his eyes at that. It's like they think he knows better than to run away right in front of them. But he definitely would be attempting again. It's not like he got in a ton of trouble for running away after all. He barely even got a talking to, just a bit of a scare. And once he'd calmed down, his determination had tripled. Izuku is ushered into the building and into the living room he'd sat in while Loud Cloud cooked for him. This time, instead of being empty though, there's people lounging around. He recognizes Loud Cloud or Oboro if he wants options, but the others are unfamiliar to him. There's one lady and then 4 men including Oboro. When they enter the room, it erupts into loud cheers, and Izuku can't help how he shrinks back, hiding behind Shouta's leg. These are obviously villains, and all of their attention is on him. Hizashi looks down at the cowering child and holds back the urge to coo. Izuku needed reassurance right now, and cooing at his baby would just make him mad. Wasn't he such a good father for figuring out Izuku's moods so fast? Hizashi scoops Izuku up close and holds him close. Don't worry, baby, I'll keep you safe. But I promise that no one here will ever hurt you. Now let's introduce you to everyone, okay? Hizashi carries Izuku over to the love seat where the woman is sprawled out. Now, Izuku baby, this is Nemuri, or your Auntie Nem. Do you want to say hi, or do you want to stay in your papa's arms? Izuku gulps. Preferably he wouldn't be here, but if the only options were going with this strange woman or staying in the familiar arms he knows aren't going to hurt him, the answer is obvious. Why you? He stutters out. Hizashi smirks. I'm sorry, baby, I'm not sure who you is. I guess you want to go with Auntie Nem, huh? Said woman squeals from the couch and sits up, reaching up to do who knows what. Izuku shoves himself back further into Hizashi's arms and turns his head to look at the blonde man in betrayal. Surely he wasn't going to use this as a way. One look at the mischievous look in Hizashi's eyes told him yes he would. Hizashi begins to lower him into the squealing woman's arms, and Izuku screeches in terror and plasters him to Hizashi's front. "You papa! I wanna stay with you." Immediately Izuku is swooped back into Hizashi's arms, and he breathes a sigh of relief. He doesn't even know that woman. Sweetie, of course you can stay with me." Nemuri snickers at the sight of her boss squealing over a child, but quickly collects herself when Shade sends her a look. Right? She's supposed to be on her best behavior. Though she has to admit, the kid is pretty cute, tiny with all those fluffy curls. Get some meat on his bones, and he'd look absolutely scrumptious. Hizashi brings Izuku over to the men all crowded together on the couch and starts to introduce them as well. "Alright baby, so everyone you're meeting is the crew. They're who we do all our crimes with, and we're all kinda like a big family. That's why I called Nemuri your auntie. I know you don't want to stay with her now, but eventually she'll be your babysitter if we need to go out. Her, or one of our other members. You know Oboro, can you wave hello?" Izuku still shies away, but notes that half of his face is swaddled in bandages. He can't help but wonder what exactly happened there. Maybe he was hurt when he was pretending to be a hero? Shouta is the one to finish the introductions, pointing out everyone as Hizashi revels in having Izuku actually clinging to him willingly. The purple-haired one is Shinso and the blonde next to him is Denki. They're our most recent members. And the one with the mask over his face is Snipe. Do you have any questions, or do you want to get to know them more? Otherwise we'll head down to the docks for your checkup. All four men beam at Izuku, trying to put him at ease, but all it does is make him more tense. Well, he assumes Snipe is smiling, he can't really tell with the whole mask thing going on. "Nice to meet ya, kiddo." Snipe drawls, tipping his cowboy hat at the boy. "Is such a cutie. We'll have bunches of fun real soon." The blonde squeals, and for just a second, it looks like electricity crackles over his skin. "It's nice to meet you." Shinso says the only normal greeting out of the three. "Good to see you again, Broccoli." Oboro jokes, the bandages around his face apparently doing nothing to dampen his cheerful disposition. He really doesn't want to meet his new family, but the other option is the creepy doctor. Maybe if he plays to their sensibilities they'll let him off the hook this time? Face burning, Izuku turns to his captors and pouts at them. "Can't we just go home, Daddy, Papa?" He makes sure to put every inch of cuteness into the pout even though it makes him kind of sick. Hizashi melts before his eyes, and even Shouta seems to melt a little at the sight. But just as soon as his expression softens, he comes to his senses, and his expression smooths out. "No can do, Bunny. We need to get you a checkup. It's important for your health, even if you don't like it. If you don't want to talk to your auntie and uncles, then we'll just take you down." Izuku turns his puppy eyes on Hizashi desperately, hoping the man will protest Shuta's decision, but the man only seems to waver for a few minutes before handing him over to Shouta with a small smile. "Sorry, baby. It's like your daddy said, your health comes first, even if it warms my heart to hear you call me Papa. And after your checkup, maybe we can go for ice cream? You'll need to get to know your auntie and uncles eventually, but it can wait until you're more settled. I need to stay and talk to them for a few minutes, but I'll be down shortly, okay?" Hizashi chucks Izuku on the chin softly, right before Shouta turns to take him to the sublevels of the compound. Izuku looks forlorn at the door, as his hope of not seeing the doctor quickly fades. "I don't like the doctor," he complains. Shouta sighs and shifts Izuku's weight so he can actually see the kid's face. "I know, Bunny. But we'll be quick, I promise." Izuku has just been set on the cot when a boom echoes across the halls, and Izuku is thrown back against the wall. "Izuku!" Shouta shouts, throwing himself over the 9-year-old. Izuku struggles to breathe as all the lights shut off suddenly and the emergency lights turn on, turning everything an eerie red. "Daddy!" Izuku screams as another boom echoes and the bed is thrown across the room. All thoughts of not liking his daddy or defying him go out of his head as his subconscious quickly latches on to the only comforting thing he has in this room. His kidnapper. "It's okay, Bunny, I'm right here." Shouta scoops up the crying child and holds him close as he tries to get his bearings. The sobbing in his ear doesn't help, but there's no way he's going to put Izuku down right now. He scrambles for his phone, working blind as Izuku's arms strangle his neck. Baby, you gotta ease up, I can't breathe. And no, what's going on, Daddy? Izuku shrieks. Shouta sighs and presses his forehead to the top of Izuku's head. I know you're scared, but Daddy has to concentrate so he can get us to safety, okay? Can you do that for me? Just loosen your grip, you don't have to let go, and be a little quiet. Daddy is gonna papa. Izuku does as instructed to Shouta's relief, and he manages to press the call button on his phone for his emergency contacts, which is only Hizashi. He picks up instantly. Oh God, are you okay? Is Izuku okay? The bombing came from down there, we're currently trying to get down there, but none of us have a quirk particularly well suited to this sheet. We might need to call in Tamura. Are you guys okay? Hizashi rambles worriedly. We're okay, I haven't investigated, because there's no way in hell I'm leaving Izuku alone right now. But we're not injured as far as I can tell. You said it came from down here? Yeah, who the F have we made enemies of recently that could have made it down there? Hizashi hisses. Shouta gets to his feet. Now that he's had more time to think, if it was a FING villain, they could still be here. He needs to go investigate, but he can't bring Izuku with him. But if he stays, he could be taken unawares by the villain, and then Izuku could die. Can you be brave for me, baby? Shouta whispers. Daddy. Daddy has to go investigate. Some villain might have gotten in and he might still be here. I can't bring you with me, but I promise he won't get past me. That I need you to stay and hide here. Izuku starts to shake his head wildly. No please Daddy. Shouta shakes his head. I'm sorry baby, I'm sorry. I'll only be a few minutes, I need to make sure he's gone. Daddy's gonna give you the phone and you can talk to Papa. Even though it kills him, he sets his kid down, who starts to sob softly. I know this is scary and I'm so sorry. I'll be right back, just be brave baby. He ushers Izuku into a cabinet to the side that didn't get destroyed and hands him the phone. Zashi, I have to investigate, and I can't take Izuku with me. Will you talk to him while I'm gone? It should just be a few minutes. Of course, babe. Be safe, and if they're still there, make him pay. Shouta nods and shuts the cabinet door with one final whispered reassurance. I'll be quick, just be quiet and it'll pass in a flash. Shouta mutters reassuringly before darting out into the hallway. He quickly scours for a bomb before he moves on, checking every room he comes across. 3 rooms down finds Dr. Garaki impaled on a piece of metal, but so far no villain. At the end of the hallway, Shouta finds the way the villain got in, and immediately he can tell who it was, by the massive hole dug into the ground. Shouta's head whips up. If it was who he thought it was, they could still be here and he wouldn't have even seen him. He needs to get back to Izuku now. He runs back the way he came, and the closer he gets, the more terrified he gets. He bursts back into the room to find his worst nightmare. His baby, struggling against the body of a man who should be long dead, phone dropped on the ground and no backup coming. Get away from him. Shouta hisses. Before they can reply, another boom goes off, and Shouta is thrown forward. He uses it to his advantage, ripping his hand away from Izuku and letting the child drop to the ground. Izuku run. Izuku complies, and with that, Aizawa is left with an enemy long thought dead. The dust from the explosion blinds Izuku as he stumbles into the hallway. Every breath he takes burns his throat, and he can't think, chest heaving as the panic starts to overtake him. After Daddy had left, the panic had overwhelmed him, to the point that he hadn't heard anything, not even his papa, through the phone. And before he knew it, he'd been yanked out of his hiding spot by a man wearing a bird mask. He hadn't done anything, simply held him waiting for his daddy to get back, but it had been enough to terrify Izuku. He'd been so relieved when his daddy burst back in, but now he's left wandering the hallway with nowhere to run. After a few minutes, Izuku slams into a pile of rubble. Bits of light shine through the cracks of the rubble. He'd made it to the stairs then. Izuku begins to cry, clawing at the mountain of rubble, pulling off the bits of broken cement his hands can hold. Through there is his papa. If he can make it to him, he'll be safe. Papa! Izuku screams, voice hoarse after inhaling so much smoke. There's no reply, But still Izuku continues, ignoring the pain in his hands. They weren't done healing, and now he was re-aggravating them, so it makes sense that they would hurt. Izuku doesn't know how long he claws at the rubble before a small hole opens up. Nothing he can climb through, but that small opening seems to let the noise from the other side filter through to him. And blessedly, he can hear his papa. "I don't care what you're doing, Tamura. A villain attacked our base, and I can't get through to Sho or my child. You know better than to be on my bad side, so if you know what is good for you, you will open a portal up and come disintegrate me a hole so I can get to my family. Now." Papa's voice is the most furious he's ever heard it. "Papa!" Hizashi's voice cuts off suddenly, the silence almost ringing after his furious shouts. "Izuku, is that you, kiddo?" Izuku can identify Oboro's voice easily enough. He nods before realizing that they can't see him. "Whyus? I can't get through. It's dark and there was someone mean, he was hurting me. Daddy made him stop and told me to run dash." Hizashi cuts Izuku off, the relief palpable in his voice. "Oh, baby, it's gonna be okay. After you stopped responding on the phone I was so scared, baby. You don't know what a relief it is to hear your voice. Are you hurt?" "My hands hurt, but otherwise I'm okay, Papa," Izuku says, hands curling into the rubble near his precious hole. Good baby. I'm glad to hear that. You said there was a villain. Could you describe him for me, darling? We need to know who we're fighting." Izuku tries to think back on the man that grabbed him, but the only thing he can remember through his terror is the creepy bird mask. "I don't know, Papa. It's so dusty and dark here. He had a bird mask, but other than that, I can't remember anything. I'm sorry." Izuku cries, tears cutting tracks through the dust clinging to his cheeks. No, that's good, baby, you did so good. That's a really important thing. I think I know who we're up against. Thank you for being so brave." His papa's voice fades away suddenly. "Daddy." Izuku cries, frightened. Before he can panic any further, his daddy starts to talk again. "It's okay, don't panic. The man who's gonna break through this rubble just got here, that's why I stopped talking. But listen, Izuku, his quirk is really dangerous, so I need you to step back, okay?" "No." Izuku cries, "What if something happens while I'm away? It'll just be for a minute, then I can get through to you. Don't you want to see me, baby? But I can only do that if you back up. Be brave for just another minute, baby, for me." Izuku takes a deep breath. "Please hurry, Daddy." Izuku steps back, entire body racked with shivers as he stares desperately at that little hole of light. Just a few more seconds and he'll be safe in his daddy's arms. Izuku is so caught up in his own head that he doesn't realize someone is behind him until it's too late. Izuku shrieks as he's lifted once again, and starts to kick his legs out wildly. It lands somewhere, and he's dropped with a grunt. He darts a frightened look over to the wall of rubble. Daddy still hasn't broken through, which leaves him with one other option. To run the opposite way. He doesn't bother to look at who grabbed him, simply turning and running away blindly. After a few minutes of panicked running, Izuku turns around, staring into the deep murky red hallway, squinting to see past all the dust. Faintly, he can hear echoes of movement coming toward him. He turns to keep running, but hardly 3 feet forward, and he drops suddenly, screaming as the ground disappears from under his feet. He falls for a few seconds, before landing on the bottom of the hole, head cracking against the soft ground. His head is spinning, and the only thing Izuku can think is that he has to keep going. So he crawls forward, feeling blindly ahead, not able to see anything in the pitch-black darkness. The dirt is moist, and occasionally it feels like something crawls on him, but he does his best to keep whatever sense he still has. If he panics down here, he'll never get out. Time seems to stop in the tunnel, and Izuku isn't sure how long he's been in there, ground gently sloping up, before he sees light at the end of the tunnel. He crawls toward it, head still spinning from where he hit it. When he finally exits the hole, the light blinds him, and Izuku cries out, rubbing hard at his eyes, trying to blink away the dark spots. It doesn't help, instead only getting dirt and blood into his eyes, causing them to sting even more. When he can finally see again, he looks around to see he's in some kind of abandoned warehouse. Izuku bites his lip, thinking, if he keeps moving, then his daddy and papa might not be able to find him. But on the other hand, Izuku is pretty sure that this tunnel didn't exist before. Which means the villains who attacked them created it, and as such if he stays, he might get caught by them if they come back through. Mind made up, Izuku creeps forward, trying to stay alert even as his head swims. Luckily for the 9-year-old, he doesn't encounter anyone as he searches for an exit and is able to slip through a broken window. After a quick look around, he stumbles away. Before he can hide and wait to be found by his parents, he needs to get away from anywhere that might be dangerous. And a villain's base definitely counted as dangerous. Shouta's POV. After Izuku leaves the room, Shouta relaxes slightly. His kid is no longer in Overhaul's hands, which makes him moderately safe. Now he can focus on murdering this idiot. You have a lot of ball coming into my base and putting your hands on my child. If you think I'll let you get away with it, you are dead wrong. Shouta spits out. He takes inventory of the room around him. There's nothing he can use within reach that would make a viable weapon, and he has nothing on him either, not having expected an attack. Which leaves his quirk. With the dist filling the air, his quirk would be out of order sooner rather than later, with nothing to block the debris out. And with Overhaul, that could spell disaster. He needed to end this quickly, before Overhaul had a chance to do any more damage. I'm glad it was you I caught down here, Shade. After all, it was because of you that everything I worked for is gone. Now, I can finally get my revenge. I've been planning this for a very long time. Overhaul spits before throwing a hand to the floor. Shouta stares silently, eyebrow raised in question. Did Overhaul forget his quirk? What? Why isn't it working? Overhaul slams his hands down a few more times, and in his distraction, Shouta darts forward, kicking his foot forward to slam into Overhaul's overgrown fang beak. It flies away, leaving his face open for the first time. Underneath the mask is Hizashi's handiwork. 2 years ago they'd caught wind of a man named Overhaul, who was attempting to make quirk erasing bullets. Shouta himself had already been approached, which he'd declined of course. But curious, they'd dug around to see exactly what the hype was with these bullets. To their disgust, they'd found Overhaul who had kidnapped any quirkless child he came across to experiment on them. Any villain should have known better than to hurt kids on Shade and Echo's territory, but alas. People always seem to need reminders. Hizashi had had such fun carving reminders into Overhaul's skin, as Shouta methodically destroyed Overhaul's innards with poison. They'd left him for dead after that encounter, should have been dead. But it seems they underestimated him. Overhaul's face is a mess of scars, his mouth downturned and black veins crawling across the bottom half. Parts of his face seem to droop, the skin sagging and yellow. If Shouta had to guess, he would assume Overhaul tried to overhaul his body to fix the damage and poison in his system. It had worked to an extent, but he hadn't been able to do it completely, leaving him disfigured and apparently brain damaged. Overhaul screams in anger and grabs Shouta's foot, yanking him to the ground. It becomes a schoolyard brawl, Shouta not even needing to use his quirk anymore, as Overhaul has completely forgotten that he also has one, whether it's repressed or not. After a few minutes of rolling on the debris-ridden floor and punches thrown like toddlers, Shouta manages to get on top of Overhaul and goes to town. The first punch lands with a sickening crunch, blood spurting from his misshapen nose. Shouta doesn't stop until the bone is crumbling underneath his fists, and Overhaul's face is more of a distant thought than an actuality. Shouta checks to make sure that the man is dead for good this time, before getting back up, breathing heavily. He doubts Overhaul brought anyone with him, in his delirious state. Which means he needs to find Izuku and make sure he is okay. He stumbles down the hall, wincing when he steps wrong. At one point, Overhaul had managed to sink his teeth into his ankle and ripped out a chunk of it. He comes along the wall of rubble fairly quickly, and is relieved to see Izuku staring at it, cheeks puffed up in fear. He chuckles softly. They'll need to teach their baby about situational awareness in the future. The kiddo hadn't even noticed him yet. He bends down and picks him up gently. Still, it startles the small child, who begins to scream hysterically and kicks out. Shouta isn't quick enough to dodge his small foot and finds himself crumbled to the ground, cradling in between his legs, with a bitten-off groan. Izuku. He bites out as he tries to stand. It's perhaps the most terrifying thing in the world to hear his child's footsteps recede into the dust-filled, red-bathed hall. Knowing that it's probably destabilized from the explosion Overhaul had set off, and was ready to come down at any moment. He climbs to his feet and starts to hobble after his kid, when the hall is suddenly bathed in light. He turns around quickly, only to sag in relief to see his husband and their coworkers behind him. Tamura, the man they work with, occasionally stands to the side, obviously the one who broke through the pile of rubble. Hizashi darts forward and wraps Shouta in a hug. I was so worried something might happen to you without any backup, or your usual weapons on you. Shouta scoffs teasingly. Come on, Zashi, you should know better than that. We wouldn't be considered some of the most feared villains alive, if something like that could destroy us. He tucks his husband's hair behind his ear, and gives him a smile. Overhaul is dead for good this time. He was alive thanks to his quirk, but clearly had brain damage. He didn't think this attack through at all. So it was that beach? Hizashi spits. I wish I had been with you to give him my own kind of retribution. Shouta laughs and pulls his husband closer, enjoying this split-second peace. Not to break up the reunion, but where's Izuku? Oboro's voice breaks them out of their trance. That's right. I scared him, and before I could tell him it was me, he ran. Shouta says. He's still in that death trap. He nods toward the red-bathed hallway. Hizashi stiffens. Then we need to go get him. He has to be terrified. Shouta nods and turns to the group. Tamura, thanks for coming so quickly. The rest of you know who to call to start getting our base fixed up. Me and Zashi will go after the little one. Their 4 crew members nod and start back up the stairs. Together, him and Hizashi start back in, ready to finally get their baby back to safety. They walk through the halls, peeking into rooms for any sign of Izuku, and calling his name. In between this, Shouta bumps his hip into Zashi's and says, This sure isn't how we saw this visit going now, is it? Hizashi laughs softly, the worry lines easing up on his face. No, it isn't. I think it's safe to say Izuku's going to be even more scared of the doctor after this. Eventually they make it to the gaping tunnel in the middle of the hall, without finding Izuku. You don't think he went in there, do you? Hizashi asks worriedly. They both know the answer to that. There's nowhere else he could have gone. Oh God, what if he's hurt or dead? Hizashi says, panic quickly seeping into his voice. Shouta runs a soothing hand down Hizashi's back. I'm sure he's fine. Listen, why don't you follow? I'm going to go grab some supplies, clean clothes for Izuku, food, maybe some of Nem's sleeping draft, and wrap my foot real quick. I'll borrow one of their phones as well, so I can call you and we can meet up. And I'll grab our tracking device. Shouta says quietly. Hizashi nods and gives him a quick kiss. I'll find our baby I promise. Without further ado, the villain hops into the tunnel and Shouta turns around to head back upstairs. Things will be fine, they have to be.